I died on a rainy night, in the middle of a fight with Gu Mingheng. In the cold house, I argued with him. It's been 7 years. Can't you just take care of this family? He looked at me with indifference. When Ran, stop making a scene. I watched him answer the phone, as if he wanted me to hear it on purpose. Inside, a woman's voice was cooing and whining flirtatiously to him. I left, utterly disheartened. As my car drove through the torrential rain, a flash of lightning and a clap of thunder later, I stomped on the accelerator and plunged into the water. This farcical marriage was finally over. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back 8 years ago, at the very moment I first met Gu Mingheng. When this rising star in the industry, Gu Mingheng, was invited to my home, I said, his product isn't ready yet, there's a better candidate. Ran, come quick. Isn't this the person you and your father mentioned? Following my father's words, I looked over to see Gu Mingheng greeting me with a warm smile. Standing on the stairs with an impassive expression, I stated bluntly, his product is underdeveloped. There's a more suitable choice. That single sentence piqued my father's interest, but it instantly drained the color from Gu Mingheng's face. My father patted Gu Mingheng's shoulder, signaling him to keep his composure. Only after seeing Gu Mingheng's expression settle did he turn to ask me, Ran, what have you found? I wanted to say, because in the very first year of our marriage, Gu Mingheng used this very product to swindle the Wen family out of a fortune. With my family's backing gone, he dropped the pretense entirely. In the end, he left me utterly heartbroken, to die in the icy water. I am so fortunate. I have been reborn. I was reborn on the very day I first met Gu Mingheng, 8 years ago, captivated by Gu Mingheng's looks and his reputation as a rising star in the industry. I fell for him just like most other girls did, and so, I began my plan to marry Gu Mingheng. My family gave him everything he wanted, eventually propelling him to the top of the industry. Yet, in the end, I was the one left trapped like a silkworm in its own cocoon, given a second chance at life. I swear I will never get caught in that web again. The product only meets current customer needs, but has no future development path. What comes next is anyone's guess, without a solid contingency plan. This product is a trap, I explained, drawing from my past life's experience. My father was momentarily stunned by my words, while Gu Mingheng's face paled for an instant. My father had actually been aware of this trap all along. However, due to my infatuation with Gu Mingheng and the fact that the product was just a small thing unlikely to cause major repercussions, he had indulged me. He just never expected me to voice it outright today. So, my father turned directly to Gu Mingheng and said, Xiao Gu, you really need to do a proper job on this product. In the end, Gu Mingheng left. Uncle, Ran makes a very good point. My company has a product that's quite similar to this. If Ran is interested, she's welcome to come and take a look. A man suddenly emerged from the coffee shop in my home, smiling warmly at me. I looked at this man, straining to place him in my memory. Oh, this is my younger uncle, Huafeng Yan. He took his mother's surname. He's only 2 years older than me, but he's a whole generation above me in the family hierarchy. Uncle, I addressed him politely. Then, with a smile, I said, I'd like to take a look. I thought to myself, if there was a similar product, that would be ideal. That way, Gu Mingheng wouldn't get to take the lion's share of the profits. I walked over and sat down beside my father. Once I was seated, Huafeng Yan settled onto the sofa next to me. Ran, look at this. Following his gaze, I saw a product similar to Gu Mingheng's. To an outsider like me, it seemed exceptionally well executed in every aspect. What puzzled me, however, was that in my past life, I had never heard of the Hua family having anything like this. Looking at this product, I feel like I'm seeing the very reason I admired Gu Mingheng all those years ago, his talent. It's very thorough, I said, nodding in agreement with the product proposal. My father chimed in at that moment. It takes you to get it done. Now this finally looks like it has a future. Huafeng Yan chuckled lightly. Young Gu is still inexperienced. His thinking is too narrow, not forward-looking enough. It feels like this is about me, about those 8 years of my obsessive pursuit, too. Huafeng Yan was right. I've already seen the outcome of this kind of talk in a past life. Now that something better is right in front of me, why wouldn't I choose it? The moment I saw Gu Mingheng again after my rebirth, my heart still skipped a beat. However, I noticed that while there was a smile in Gu Mingheng's eyes, there was no trace of romantic affection. The look in his eyes when he truly falls for someone is not like this. In this lifetime, I don't want to be hung up on him anymore. I'm going to love myself more. I took on Huafeng Yan's project. Throughout the week, he would always make time to visit me twice. Our conversations gradually shifted from project details to him asking about my day. A few months later, the product was finished. and my relationship with Hua Fangyan skyrocketed to that of close friends. Upon its release, the product was an instant hit, receiving rave reviews, and the Hua family successfully captured another market. Riding this wave of opportunity, Gu Mingheng's company launched a similar product of their own, and among the new contenders, they remained far ahead of the pack, almost overnight. Gu Mingheng's company became the kind of firm people mentioned in the same breath as the Hua Group. This is a golden opportunity. That female manager doesn't like Gu Mingheng at all. Last time he went to her home, he couldn't even close the deal. After handling some business at the conference, I had just stepped into the break room when I overheard the gossip. A faint, coquettish sound came from next door. It sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. The speaker said, "Don't worry, I've made some inquiries. Gu Mingheng is exactly into your type. Besides, you're so pretty. He's bound to notice you. Once he gets an impression, he'll start thinking about you sooner or later." How thoughtful. If you're really that worried, here's another piece of news for you. That female manager is probably together with Hua Fangyan now. Sure enough, upon hearing this, that sweet, delicate voice from inside grew a bit louder. Really, they're together all the time. If you don't believe me, go ask around. Who would have thought someone as stern and icy as Hua Fangyan would find a partner? I was quite puzzled. Where was Hua Fangyan stern and icy? That's just a rumor. Besides, it's not like we're together every single day. Wait, I think we're getting sidetracked. I cleared my throat and stepped inside. Use your head when you speak. Don't just believe everything you hear. The two people inside were startled, staring at me blankly for a moment. And another thing, there is nothing between Hua Fangyan and me. The two of them seemed too stunned to do anything but nod. I turned to leave, then paused to add one more thing. Also, Fangyan Hua is a genuinely good person. You and Mingheng Gu should really open your eyes and see that clearly. After saying that, I left the break room without looking back. I had just returned to the venue when Fangyan Hua walked over to me. Ran, what's wrong? Did something upset you at the venue? He asked with a gentle look on his face. I shook my head. There was no need to mention what had just happened. I felt completely at ease with Hua Fangyan. If I had been with someone like him, I don't think I would have ended up so utterly despondent that I died in the water. 3. The Hua and Gu families have monopolized most of the market with this product, creating a significant imbalance. Now, each side will appoint one representative to present the product. This will allow other companies some breathing room and help restore balance to the market. As the lead person in charge of this Hua product, I naturally had to attend. What I didn't expect was for Gu Mingheng to be the one representing their side. Once at the venue, I simply gave him a nod in greeting and then made a point of keeping my distance. It wasn't until the formal proceedings began that we finally had a proper meeting. He smiled at me from across the room, like a perfectly amiable gentleman. I remained stoic and composed as I greeted him. After the briefing concluded and everyone began to disperse, Gu Mingheng stopped me. He said to me, Ran, have you been feeling down lately? It's been a while since you came to see me. I hadn't expected Gu Mingheng to seek me out on his own. In my past life, it had taken considerable effort on my part just to get him to be civil, and he had never been this proactive. Not even once. I listened as he called my name, those two words I once longed to hear most. Now that they've finally been spoken, the thrill is gone. I took a deep breath and said, I'm in a perfectly good mood. As for why I didn't contact Mr. Gu, it's simple. We're on opposite sides now. He paused, seemingly caught off guard by such a straightforward answer, then suddenly let out a soft laugh. Ran, I won't discuss anything serious with you, just a simple chat, like we used to. His tone was unusually gentle, unusually soft. For a moment, I was dazed. How long had it been since I'd last seen him like this? 6 years? 8? I couldn't remember. It had been far too long. I think Mr. Gu may have misunderstood something. At the time, you lacked support, and I originally intended to lend a hand, drawn by your talent. However, your sincerity fell short. But that's all in the past now. You've since gained a voice and standing. I believe there's nothing left for us to discuss. I deliberately put distance between us. He said, Ran, I have other projects. We could work together. I never thought I'd see him acting so meek and submissive toward me. A wave of complex emotions washed over me. Before I could say anything, another voice called out to me, Ran, I'm here to pick you up. I turned toward the voice. It was Hua Fangyan. He walked over, glanced at Gu Mingheng, then looked at me and gave a slight smile. Mr. Gu, what a coincidence. You're still here. Is there something you need to discuss with the Hua group? With that single sentence, Hua Fangyan had effectively claimed me as part of the Hua group. giving a lone individual like me the formidable backing of a powerful patron. I stepped forward and took Huafengyan's arm. "Let's go, Dad is waiting for us at home." As he walked along with me, he glanced at Gu Mingheng, whose hand was half raised, and replied gently to what I had just said, "All right." 4. Huafengyan is a truly remarkable man. Ever since I can remember, he has always been ahead of his peers. When he was little and came to our house, he would always be showered with praise, not the flattering kind, but genuine admiration. Everyone could foresee just how formidable the Hua family's successor would become. True to everyone's expectations, Huafengyan has charged ahead with decisive force. At just 23 years old, he had already secured his position within the Hua family enterprise. After we got home, my father couldn't stop praising Huafengyan, remarking on his exceptional composure that had been evident since childhood. One impressive achievement after another was laid out before me as a prelude. Before my father finally called out to me, "Ran, you stick close to Fengyan and do well." Before I could even respond, Huafengyan smiled and interjected, "Don't worry, uncle, I'll always look out for her. Ran is doing perfectly fine." Watching this scene, it suddenly struck me that in my past life, Gu Mingheng would always just agree with my father during their meals, never as relaxed and harmonious as today. This is what a real family feels like. It was at this moment I realized that Huafengyan was flawless in every way, and far more handsome than Gu Mingheng to boot. If its talent I admire, isn't the very best of it right here in front of me? Under the bright lights, I watched Huafengyan give me a gentle smile, and I found myself smiling back, as if I'd caught it from him. Huafengyan is simply better than Gu Mingheng. The next day, when I arrived at the office, I noticed people seemed to be stealing glances at me. I pulled someone aside to ask and found out that Huafengyan coming to my house for dinner had been twisted into him meeting my parents. I gave a verbal explanation. A few days later, that explanation seemed to have made no impact whatsoever, and the rumors about Huafengyan and me going home to meet the parents only grew more intense. This, in turn, led to the girls who used to fawn over Gu Mingheng no longer seeing me as a rival. I was thinking of talking to Huafengyan today to get a clear explanation from him. Little did I know, after work, as I was waiting in the underground garage, a woman suddenly appeared. She tapped on my car window and asked, "Are you Wen Ran?" Sensing her hostility, I lied and said, "No, I'm not, I'm the assistant." The woman in front of me looked puzzled. Suddenly, I heard someone call out, "Wen Ran." It was Gu Mingheng, shouting my name as he ran towards me. I thought to myself, what rotten luck. Everything goes wrong the moment I run into Gu Mingheng. In my past life, he gave me the silent treatment during my night shifts, leaving me utterly desolate, isolated, and wishing for death. In this life, is he going to pull some new trick to make me repeat the same miserable fate as before? The woman in front of me realized I was lying to her. Her face contorted as she shrieked, "You little tramp, nothing but lies. You're the one who tricked Brother Yen into leaving me." She lunged to scratch me, trapped in the car. I had no good way to dodge her in that moment. Just then, Gu Mingheng ran over and forcefully shoved the woman aside. "What do you think you're doing?" The woman shrieked. "How dare you hit me? Do you have any idea who I am?" Seeing how brazen she was, I figured she must come from a family with some clout. This was going to be trouble. Gu Mingheng's shove only made the woman think we were in cahoots. What rotten luck. The woman charged again. But Gu Mingheng held back. I could tell he'd also realized she was no ordinary opponent. As he dodged her, an opening appeared in front of me. The woman lunged my way, forcing me to scramble out of the car. "What are you doing?" A voice called out from behind me. I was about to turn around when a force yanked me back. It was Huafengyan. He had pulled me behind him, shielding me. "Brother Yen," the woman cried out. Huafengyan said to the woman, "Hualan, I've told you many times. There's no possibility for us." Hualan cried out, "That's not true, Brother Yen, you're lying." Huafengyan said, "If there's a next time, I won't just ask your parents to discipline you, we'll settle this in court." After he finished speaking, Huafengyan shielded me as we left. During the entire time he was there, I never saw the woman's face. Huafengyan kept me safe and sound. Only then did I realize what real protection looks like, not the hypocritical posturing of Gu Mingheng, which always left me hurt in the end. 5. Are you alright? I'm sorry I'm late. Huafengyan apologized to me while checking me over. "These things are unavoidable. I don't blame him, I'm fine," I said. Huafengyan placed a hand on my shoulder and looked at me seriously. "If this happens again, don't just stand there, otherwise, you'll be the one who gets hurt." I could tell he had caught a glimpse of what just happened. I heard a faint sound behind me. I turned and saw Gu Mingheng. It dawned on me that Hua Fanyan's remark was directed at him. Sure enough, Gu Mingheng frowned upon hearing it. I knew he was angry. I know him all too well. He's been pulling the same act on me for 8 years, but now, I don't have to put up with him anymore. I understand. I replied to Hua Fanyan's earlier comment. I want to go home. Gu Mingheng, who had been sulking, heard what I said. In unison with Hua Fanyan, I said, I'll walk you out. We spoke at the same time. Ran. I know you're only in charge of this one project at the Hua Corporation. As it happens, I have an even better opportunity here. Gu Mingheng, standing beside Hua Fanyan, grabbed my arm and said, let me walk you out. We can talk on the way. I pulled my arm back. Before I could say a word, Hua Fanyan shifted his position, planting himself directly between me and Gu Mingheng. Mr. Gu, are you trying to poach someone right in front of me? Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence. But a third time is a pattern. If I hear you bring this up again, I won't be so polite. I gave Hua Fanyan a pat, and he moved aside to give me a little space. Looking at Gu Mingheng's infuriated face, I said, Mr. Gu, there's no need to keep trying to recruit me. Whatever was between us ended a long time ago, and please, stop calling me Ran. My suitor might get the wrong idea. After 8 long years, I've finally said it. I'm finally free from my obsession with Gu Mingheng. And I've found my confidence again. The heavy weight of pent-up frustration and agitation is finally beginning to lift. 6. With thunder and lightning raging outside, I feel a sense of unease inside the house. Gu Mingheng still isn't back, and I'm really worried about him. I tried calling him, but I couldn't get through. Ding dong. A notification sounded from my phone. It was from a woman, and she had her arms around Gu Mingheng. Don't wait any longer. He won't be coming back tonight. That was the message. Numbly, I turned off my phone. As usual, I waited in silence. Only the sight of him could bring me peace. I had nothing left. No family, no possessions, no sense of self. All I had was Gu Mingheng. In the end, Gu Mingheng came home, just like he always did. I rushed over anxiously, opened my phone to show him the photo, and asked, after 7 years, can't you even take proper care of this family? Just like always, he said something that cut straight to the heart. When Ran, stop making a scene is a wife of 8 years, trying to win back her husband's heart, just being hysterical. 8 years, and I'm so sick of hearing that line. I drove through the stormy night, lightning flashing and thunder crashing, until I finally found my destination, a river. The icy water rose over my mouth and nose, and I closed my eyes. A knocking sound echoed in my ears. My eyes snapped open, staring at the familiar, comforting ceiling. It was just a nightmare. Ran. Are you awake? My mother's voice called from outside the door. I replied, I'm awake, Mom. I gathered my things and went downstairs, where I saw Hua Fanyan standing with my parents. I walked over, and my mother took my hand, giving it a gentle pat. Fanyan, I'm so sorry. Ran just got up. You must have been waiting for a while. Not at all. I only just arrived myself, Hua Fanyan said with a smile. Actually, that's not the case. I told Hua Fanyan yesterday to come at 8 today. But it's almost 10 now. He must have been here for quite a while. My mother was quite pleased with that answer. Well, you two should get going then, she said, following the gentle nudge from my mother. I linked my arm with Hua Fanyan's. All right, Hua Fanyan replied. After stepping outside, I spotted a familiar figure. I nudged Hua Fanyan to get his attention, but by then, the person ahead had already walked halfway past us. I said, I think I've seen that person before. Hua Fanyan replied. That's my uncle. He came by your house once before. They're here. What about Hualan? Just passing by. I've already spoken to Hualan and the others. No need to worry. I actually wanted to ask if Hualan would bother you, but then I thought about my own position. Better not meddle in his affairs. It could lead to misunderstandings. 7. After what happened last time, Gu Mingheng did indeed lay low for a while, but he came to see me again. And this time he was a bit smarter. He didn't bring up the project. Ran, it's better to call you that. There was a piece of jewelry at the floral art auction that I thought would suit you perfectly, so I bought it. I hope you like it, Gu Mingheng said to me with a smile. I'm used to him being like this now, without the old rose-tinted glasses. This is exactly who he always was. I took a sip of my coffee and said flatly, no, I don't like it. He paused, taken aback. Ran. You haven't even looked at it yet. I set my cup down. You know I don't like jewelry. Didn't you know that? His face flushed red, but in the end, he was left speechless. Is there anything else? I asked. Ran, is there anything you like? I can get it for you, I replied. No need. What I like, you couldn't afford to give me. Gu Mingheng has left. Hua Fangyan knew Gu Mingheng came to see me. He was listening from the next room. With my permission, Ran, you've changed a lot compared to before. I blinked with a smile. I've just come to see things more clearly. People always grow up, you know. He chuckled softly. Ran has a point, but with me, you never have to grow up. The room was enclosed in transparent glass. With people constantly coming and going in the office, glances kept drifting our way. Seeing Hua Fangyan smiling at me like that, everyone in the office looked as if they'd seen a ghost. It seemed the previous rumors were impossible to clear up. Just as I was about to say something polite, Hua Fangyan's words stopped me in my tracks. Ran, with a broader heart, can you see more of the scenery now? 8, yes. I should go and see more of the world now. I should have put an end to this 8-year relationship long ago. The joy I felt in my past life has faded into indifference in this one. My feelings for Gu Mingheng were completely exhausted over these 8 years. Now, in this life, I've come to see another side of this person. For now, I just want to live my own life well. Matters of the heart can wait. Hua Fangyan looked at me, chuckled, stood up, and patted my head. Still just a kid. I was at a loss. In the following days, the market finally stabilized, and I called in someone to take over my duties. Thinking of going to City C, Hua Fangyan walked beside me, sounding a bit surprised by my words. Why? He asked. Because City C has less water, fewer rivers. I'm a little afraid of water. I'm scared I might fall in again, terrified that this wonderful life I have now could all vanish into thin air. I don't like cities with a lot of water, I said, looking down. That place has plenty of trees, the air is fresh. And the Hua Corporation has a branch office there too. Everything is good. Hua Fangyan looked at me, his tall frame once again casting a shadow over me. But this time, I felt uneasy. I was a little afraid he might get angry. Alright, I'll have someone find you a place far from the water in City C, Hua Fangyan said, patting my head. Don't be afraid. I could tell he was trying to comfort me. And I could also tell that Hua Fangyan was a bit upset. I patted him and said, don't be upset. I'll come back to see you whenever I have the chance. I knew he was swamped with work and usually couldn't get away for long, so meeting up would have to be on me. He smiled and replied, okay. I smiled back at Hua Fangyan. It suddenly occurred to me that in my past life, I'd had almost no interaction with Hua Fangyan. All my attention had been on Gu Mingheng. I used my family's resources to elevate him step by step, until he eventually secured a prominent position. The Hua family had never ventured into the industry Gu Mingheng was in, and I was never as familiar with Hua Fangyan as I am now. The trip to City C still required some arrangements, so I found myself with some free time for the moment. Hua Fangyan suggested I work as his assistant to gain experience, so I could hit the ground running and take over the work once we got there. Officially, I was his assistant, but there wasn't much for me to do. It was more like I was just tagging along with Hua Fangyan on his travels. The project auction for the Gu Group is now commencing. I followed Hua Fangyan into a conference hall. The main purpose here was to observe and bid on some promising projects. This was the Gu Group, Gu Mingheng's company. He really put a lot of thought into it. I think this project looks particularly promising. Company after company went up to present their auction bids. Are there any other bidders? The host called out from the stage. I'm actually a bit anxious myself. This is definitely worth shooting. It's a solid project, but on the surface, I kept my cool, so no one could tell I was worried. Suddenly, I felt a strange pull and glanced in a certain direction. There was Gu Mingheng, staring right at me. His gaze was intense, almost predatory, and fierce. I'd never seen that look in his eyes before. So, the Gu Group hasn't announced their preferred partner yet. It's clear to me now. This whole thing is aimed squarely at me. I couldn't help but feel a surge of resentment towards Gu Mingheng for pulling this stunt. At that moment, Hua Fangyan gave my hand a reassuring pat. I looked over at him, and he said, don't worry about it. Afterwards, he arranged for someone to go on stage to perform. I didn't have to go on stage. I saw Gu Mingheng turn his head away with a dark, sullen look. His scheme was not going to succeed. Hua Fangyan leaned close to me, his voice whispering by my ear, don't be afraid. As long as you don't want to, no one can force you. 9. In this new life, I'm seeing a different world. The Hua Corporation has launched a new project, and the entire company is buzzing with activity. Even though I'm not directly involved, I can feel it too. Fangyan Hua is incredibly busy. The time I get to spend alone with him is dwindling. However, negative gossip within the company has gradually started to pick up again. Those who were previously whispering about the big boss in private have, after this period of being overworked, now begun to openly complain. The boss seems even worse than before. I used to see him smile sometimes, but have you seen him smile lately? The plans get revised over and over, and he tears people to shreds. It's really terrifying. I'm even starting to think about quitting." This was what a new junior colleague said to me, almost offhandedly. I frowned and said to her, "He's actually quite even-tempered. It's just that he's swamped with work lately and needs to be accountable for everything." The new colleague's eyes lit up when she saw me defending Huafangyan, as if she'd stumbled upon some fresh, juicy gossip. "I heard a rumor recently that you have a thing for the boss. Is that true? That's such old news. I can't believe people are still talking about it." I looked at her with a sigh. "It's not true. I don't have feelings for Huafangyan. We're just related, so we're naturally closer. It's nothing. Don't listen to the rumors." The moment I finished speaking, a strand of hair by my ear was gently brushed aside. I turned around and saw Huafangyan standing there, holding some documents. A sudden panic washed over me. Had he heard what I just said? He was waiting for me to continue, seeing his expression, which didn't seem eager to hear more. I quickly changed the subject. "You must be tired. Why don't you go and get some rest?" To my surprise, the moment I spoke, Huafangyan's expression changed, as if he had taken offense. "No need." His tone was icy. "Gu Mingheng came looking for you. I told him to wait downstairs, so it was because Gu Mingheng looked unwell. I thought I had said something wrong. Oh, I'll head down now. You don't look too good. You should probably get some rest." After going downstairs, I saw Gu Mingheng pacing in the tea room. I had just sat down when Gu Mingheng handed me a contract and said gently, "I heard you're going to City C. I happen to have a branch office there. This position would suit you well. It offers clear opportunities for advancement based on performance." My heart skipped a beat at the mention of a promotion. No one can resist a tangible reward like that. What Gu Mingheng didn't know was that I didn't need to strive for a promotion. But only a fool would turn down a freebie. I took the contract and glanced at it. To my surprise, it was for a project involving direct contact with Gu Mingheng. I frowned, and he caught on to what I was thinking. "Are you saying you wouldn't take it if it meant working with me? This contract would benefit the Hua Corporation's branch office as well." I looked up at him and said calmly, "You're overthinking it." I put the contract away beside me. "Of course the promotion is important, and thank you, Mr. Gu, for always keeping the Hua Corporation's interests in mind. Of course my promotion is far more important than you are." Gu Mingheng's expression darkened at my last words, and even his movements grew stiff. A group of people descended from the tea room, drawing a wave of attention. It was impossible not to notice. It was Huafangyan seeing off a business partner, all smiles, nothing like the stern, unyielding figure he was reputed to be in the company. "Do you like someone like Huafangyan?" Gu Mingheng suddenly asked. Perhaps because I had been looking at Huafangyan for too long, I let out a light laugh. What right did Gu Mingheng have to ask? I stated firmly, "Mr. Gu, your vision seems to come and go. You can spot other people's merits, yet you have no idea what kind of person I dislike." Gu Mingheng's face instantly darkened. 10. I'm off work. Want to come over to my place for dinner today? My parents miss you. I asked Huafangyan, "Do you have work today?" He smiled and patted my head. "You should know if I have work or not, secretary." I smiled. We both knew I was only joking. "Then let's go to my place for dinner today." "All right," he replied. "Things here are pretty much wrapped up. There's not much left to do, so I'll be free to go with you to City C. I know Huafangyan has my best interests at heart." "Okay, thanks, uncle," I replied playfully. We packed up our things and headed down to the parking garage. To my surprise, someone was already waiting there. It was a woman, dressed in a red gown with exquisite makeup and a pitiful, delicate expression. She looked somewhat familiar, but I couldn't place her for a moment. Brother Yen. The moment she spoke, I knew who she was. Hualan. The last time I saw her, the lighting was dim, and in the ensuing panic, all I could make out was a frantic woman in constant motion. The only thing I remembered clearly was this voice. I said, "She needs to talk to you." "I'll wait in the car then." Trying to be considerate, I stepped aside to give Hualan some space, but the moment I finished speaking, she lunged at me, reaching out to claw at my face. "When ran, you bitch, it's all your fault, all of it." I had no idea what was going on, but I was certain this woman was completely unhinged. Huafangyan was right in front of me. Before Hualan could even get close, he had already restrained her, right before my eyes. Hualan completely reversed her earlier attitude and just clung to Huafangyan, crying. Looking at Huafangyan, who was tangled up like an octopus had grabbed him, I felt a headache coming on for his sake. I knew there was no way we were having that meal today. "Looks like dinner's off for today, uncle. I'll invite you another time." After I said this, Hualan actually laughed through her tears. I answered for Huafangyan. You should head back for now. Your uncle and I will come to your place for dinner when the time comes. She was acting every bit the aunt. A chill ran down my spine. If Hua Fangyan really ends up with Hua Lan, I'm definitely not staying at the Hua Corporation. Ever since I left the underground parking lot that day, I hadn't seen Hua Fangyan at the company for several days in a row. The next time I saw him was not far from my front door. He was standing alone outside in the cold wind, looking more desolate than usual. Fangyan Hua, I called out to him. He turned to look at me, his eyes bright, dispelling the chill around him. That extra touch of desolation transformed into a crisp coolness. Nothing major going on lately, right? You just dumped the company on me. Don't be surprised if I end up taking your seat. I made a clumsy joke, hoping to get a smile out of Fangyan Hua right then. It seemed I had succeeded. Hua Fangyan smiled and reached out to ruffle my hair. All right then, worst case, we can swap. I'll be your secretary. 11. Hua Fangyan's clothes were actually torn. For someone of his standing, this was truly an odd occurrence. I pointed at his clothes and said, "What happened to your outfit?" He looked down in the direction I was pointing, gave the fabric a tug, and a small hole that was there before was now fully exposed, turning into a gaping tear. Hua Fangyan reached to cover it, but his arm wasn't long enough. He could only fumble at the spot, his face flushing slightly. I didn't notice. Are you sure you're okay? I looked at the tattered clothes. It really didn't seem like he was fine. I reached out to take a closer look, and Hua Fangyan's face flushed an even deeper shade of red. He caught my hand and gave a soft laugh. Ruren, you're so concerned about me. I just realized how close we were. So close that I could see his eyelashes. So close that our breaths seemed to mingle. All the blood in my body rushed to my face. I was just looking, I said. Feeling awkward, my hand was still in his grasp. I pulled it free, and to make my action seem more natural, I gave him a light pat. Besides, you're my uncle. If I don't care about you, who else would I care about? When Ran, his tone suddenly turned serious, his eyes fixed on me, and I felt like prey being sized up again, but this time, not with a vicious intent to tear me apart, but rather as if he wanted to carry me off to his home and keep me, with a broader mind. You'll see more of the world. I couldn't worry about his clothes anymore. My instinct was to run. Hua Fangyan, I have to go home. I'll treat you to a meal next time. In my frantic rush, I didn't even have a moment to look at him, and I hurried home on foot. I lay down on the bed. I knew Hua Fangyan's words this time carried a different meaning than before. Hua Fangyan's words were all reasonable. Every statement he made was delivered with precise intent and an air of absolute conviction. I tossed and turned in bed. The next day, before heading to the office, I tried to cover my dark circles with concealer, but my weary expression still betrayed a sleepless night. An exchange with Hua Fangyan at the office was inevitable. Hua Fangyan waved me over. Feeling down, he asked me. His clothes today were immaculate and very refined. I didn't get enough sleep, so I really couldn't muster the energy to tackle work today. Most of all, I didn't want to face Hua Fangyan looking like a complete mess. No, I just didn't sleep well. Hua Fangyan looked as if he were facing a formidable enemy. He took the file from my hand and, without a word, pulled me along with a serious expression. He led me into the office's inner room. It's soundproof in here, so you can rest easy. I smiled and said, "Boss, you're not going to dock my pay today, are you?" Hua Fangyan patted my head. "No, I've been upgraded. I'm now a combined boss secretary package." Hua Fangyan closed the door. I was reminded again of my past life, when I often slept poorly at Gu Mingheng's house. The first time he asked, I honestly told him I hadn't slept well, but Gu Mingheng said, "If you can't even manage the simplest thing like sleeping, what are you good for?" I don't have to live in fear anymore. Hua Fangyan is not Gu Mingheng. I pulled the covers over myself and fell into a peaceful sleep. 12. Gu Mingheng came to see me again. He said he needed to go to City C for a site visit, which is a crucial next step. I told him I would need to ask my boss for permission, and he nodded in agreement. Then, right in front of me, he called Hua Fangyan and asked him directly. After a brief conversation, Gu Mingheng hung up the phone and said to me with a smile, "He's agreed to go on the inspection trip to City C." My heart couldn't help but skip a beat. I was feeling a bit down. I didn't quite catch everything Gu Mingheng said afterward, but the gist of it was for me to get ready, waiting for the notice to go with him on the inspection trip to City C. Since Hua Fangyan had already agreed, I had no choice but to nod in agreement. Ever since Gu Mingheng left, I've been feeling down these past few days. I genuinely don't want to be around him today. I had just arrived at the company entrance when I was stopped. When Ran, "What do you mean by this?" Gu Mingheng said, grabbing my arm. He was gripping me so hard that my arm ached. "Let go of me. What are you talking about?" I don't understand, I retorted. I informed you about the project in City C, why didn't you go? Even if you couldn't make it, was it so hard to give me a call? You didn't even bother to notify me. You just sent some unknown rookie to communicate with me, when ran. Do I even matter to you at all? I couldn't break free from his grip. Hearing him say that, my anger flared up instantly. Gu Mingheng, are you even listening to reason? When did you ever tell me? Gu Mingheng was incredulous. I sent you a message. I snorted coldly. Looks like you texted the wrong number. He was panting with anger, and I felt a twinge of satisfaction. Even if she's new, she's a Hua Corporation employee. She'll get the job done. Gu Mingheng. What on earth are you making a fuss about? He yanked me close, his eyes rimmed with red. When ran, do I even cross your mind? He repeated, seeing him like this, like some unthinking beast, made ragged by the struggle, my fear of him vanished. I just found it laughable. Who do you think you are? I said. 13. Gu Minghuan's face turned ashen. When ran, think carefully before you speak. If you keep acting like this, Gu Minghuan, will never come looking for you again. I looked at him, puzzled. What are you thinking? I never asked you to come find me. Don't tell me you're still fantasizing about marrying into the Wen family because of what happened before. Back when I had just been reborn, I was pursuing Gu Mingheng with a fiery passion. I thought that by pulling back a little, he'd get the hint about the misunderstanding. Who would have thought he'd be such a daydreamer? My arm was already flushed a deep red. Suddenly, a hand shot out between us. The hand forcefully pried the grip off me, and my arm was finally freed. Huafang Yan, restricting someone's freedom right outside my company. Mr. Gu, my legal team isn't just for show. Once again, Huafang Yan pulled me behind him, shielding me. It suddenly dawned on me that wherever Huafang Yan was, my troubles seemed to melt away effortlessly. Gu Mingheng took a few deep breaths to steady himself. With a forced, insincere smile, he said, Mr. Hua, integrity is paramount in all matters. Once you've agreed to something, it's best not to go back on your word. Oh, are you referring to the project in City C, Mr. Gu? If I recall correctly, our discussion was about agreeing to conduct a site visit to City C. I never specified who would be going. Huafang Yan, Gu Mingheng ground out through clenched teeth. Huafang Yan remained unflappable and jovial, showing no fear. Mr. Gu, it would be wise not to jump to conclusions next time. Gu Mingheng let out a bitter laugh in his fury. Huafang Yan, you're not getting any younger. Your family must be pressuring you a lot lately. I hear you've been in frequent contact with Miss Hulan, so I suppose you've already found your match. Since Mr. Hu already has a lovely lady in his life, perhaps it's best not to meddle in other people's affairs. A wave of sorrow washed over me, a strangely sudden and intense emotion. Security, Huafang Yan shouted. Gu Mingheng was kicked out, staring at Huafang Yan's face. I thought of Gu Mingheng's words, and the image of that woman, Hulan, surfaced in my mind again. Someone as good as Huafang Yan. I did hear rumors about him in my past life, but I never saw any reports later on about him getting married. Was Huafang Yan with Hulan in the previous life? Is it going to be the same as my last life all over again? 14. There's nothing between Hulan and me. Don't listen to his nonsense, Huafang Yan said to me while tending to my arm. Ran, I'm still single. The sadness in my heart suddenly dissipated, and I softly murmured, there are still a few things to wrap up here, so it might take a little while. I've sorted everything out in City C, and that project is being followed up on. It's the perfect time for you to go and take over. It suits you well. My arm had been taken care of. I lowered my gaze and listened carefully to Huafang Yan's words. You go ahead, and I'll join you as soon as I'm done here. Okay, Ran. Huafang Yan crouched down to look at me, his expression gentle and tinged with a hint of pleading. I couldn't understand how the word pleading could ever be associated with Huafang Yan. It just didn't fit him. I didn't want to dwell on it either, so I quickly agreed. It wasn't a big request anyway, just a normal thing to do. Take your time, no rush, I said. Huafang Yan smiled gently and patted my head. I arrived in City C, just as Huafang Yan had said. I smoothly took over the project upon arrival, though Gu Mingheng also came after hearing the news. Except for him, what also took me by surprise was that the project even involved a swimming pool. However briefly, it was very little, just mentioned in passing. So when I reviewed it, I didn't realize a site visit would be necessary. A swimming pool means there's water involved. I've been putting it off for a long time, but today I finally came to check out the swimming pool in person. Luckily, Gu Mingheng had other business and wasn't here. I watched the ripples form on the water's surface. It was such a small movement, yet it filled me with immense fear. My head began to spin, and I started having trouble breathing. I wanted to take a few steps back, Suddenly, someone pushed me from behind. Splash, I fell into the water. It rushed over my face, and the screams from the shore sounded muffled, as if trapped under a dome. I couldn't make them out. It felt as if someone was pulling me down. Were they coming to reclaim my life? Was this beautiful world not meant for me to experience? Fear paralyzed me in the water. But I don't want to die. I screamed for help in the water. A silent, desperate cry, help me, somebody, help me, help. I closed my eyes. Ran, wake up, Ran. Someone was calling my name. I opened my eyes and saw a drenched Huafangyan. Breathe, just breathe, Ran. My mouth was forced open. My body cried out for help on its own, and air rushed in. Only then did I realize I wasn't dead. Tears welled up and spilled over. I was already weeping uncontrollably. It's over now. It's all right, Ran. Huafangyan held me tightly, and in his embrace, I could feel the faint tremor in his body. Huafangyan was scared too. Ran, I'll get you out of here. Once we're out, there's no more water, and we'll be safe, Huafangyan repeated to me. He was trying to reassure me. I clung tightly to Huafangyan. He was my lifeline. After walking for a while, Huafangyan stopped, and I heard Gu Mingheng's voice. Ran, how is she? Hearing Gu Mingheng's voice, I was instantly pulled back into that stormy, thunderous night. The night when no one came to save me. My body began to tremble, and my head started to spin again. The world outside grew hazy, and I faintly heard Huafangyan's voice. Get lost. Don't you ever show your face in front of her again. 15. They say those who drown are forever trapped in the place where they met their end. I fell into the water, powerless, and could only watch helplessly as the endless surface swallowed me. Inside, I was screaming, desperate and frantic. Help me. Just as I thought all hope was lost, a figure suddenly appeared. It was Huafangyan, dripping wet, who pulled me from the water's depths. He held me close, urging, breathe, just breathe, and soothed me. It's over now, you're safe. The endless water receded. I followed his words, drawing in deep, ragged breaths. Why hasn't she woken up yet? That was Huafangyan's voice. It's nothing serious. She just swallowed some water and got a fright. She'll come around in a bit. I caught the scent of disinfectant. That voice must be the doctor's. Your uncle's family is utterly despicable. How's the situation being handled? I didn't get an answer from Huafangyan. Huafangyan noticed the change in my breathing, so I couldn't keep up the pretense and had to open my eyes. You're awake, Ran. Are you feeling any better? Huafangyan was still soaking wet. Seeing that I had woken up, the stern expression on his face finally relaxed. I'm fine now. Recalling what the doctor had just said, I asked, is Hualan using you? He was taken aback for a moment, but then he smiled at me. I tried to take advantage of the situation, but it didn't work out. I saw right through it. I smiled as well. That's good, he added. Ran. There's nothing between her and me. It's you who's been through a lot of fright because of this. Ran. Do you ever think I'm just a lot of trouble? I was taken aback, not expecting Huafangyan to speak of himself that way. You're not a burden, I replied quickly. That's other people's problem. You're wonderful, and I feel so at ease when I'm with you. Huafangyan, you make me feel like I have someone to rely on. Don't start doubting yourself because of me. The light in the room was too bright, glaring in my eyes and making it hard to see Huafangyan clearly. I just felt his touch on my head was unusually gentle today. I heard him answer softly, okay, 16. The project in City C was put on hold for a few days before someone else was assigned to take over. The delay of a few days was mainly for me to rest and recuperate. The change in personnel was because Huafangyan was worried about me. Huafangyan stayed for a few days before heading back. There's a lot going on over there, so it was quite an effort for him to be here these past few days. After Huafangyan left, someone I never expected showed up. Huafangyan's mother, Qin Ting, Ran. She was wearing a white dress, her entire being radiating boundless gentleness. In my memory, I didn't have many interactions with Auntie Qin. My impression was simply that she was a very gentle person. Auntie Qin, her smile deepened as she took my hand. When Ran came to City C, Shayan kept it from me the whole time. That child of mine went out of his way to keep us from seeing you. I saw that Shayan had left, so I came over quietly. I didn't quite understand what she was saying. Qin Ting continued, Shayan mentioned you haven't been well lately, so I brought some tonics. Don't trouble yourself with the little things. If anything's worrying or tiring you out, just tell Shayan directly. I'm fine now. Auntie Qin, even so, you should still take it easy. Don't be nervous, Ran. I just came by to see how you're doing. We've known each other for so long, and I've always been very fond of you. I smiled. About the situation with Shayan and Hualan, I thought I should tell you. There's no romantic entanglement between them, it's all because of Xiaoyan's uncle. He ignored the mess the company was in from the start, it was Xiaoyan who saved it. Now, unable to pay off his gambling debts, he had Hualan get close to Xiaoyan to steal important documents, theft, gambling, attempted murder. They're really trying to do every terrible thing imaginable. I remember the day Huafanyan's clothes were in tatters. The uncle watching with a predatory gaze, the cousin who was completely unhinged, the complex and rigorous project, while also taking care of my sickly self. How does Huafanyan manage everything so flawlessly, always projecting such a reassuring presence? 18. At this time in my previous life, I was already married to Gu Mingheng. My family was also left in ruins by Gu Mingheng's project. Gu Mingheng had me confined to the house, so no one could bring me any important news from the outside. After meeting Huafanyan a few times, I never heard from him again. Now, things are different. I haven't repeated the same mistake, and I can easily find out everything about Huafanyan. Dealing with the matter concerning Uncle Hua seems to be a bit of a hassle. It's been quite a while since Huafanyan last came by. On the other hand, Gu Mingheng has been coming to see me a lot lately. Ran, he walked over to me, calling my name while idly turning the coffee cup in his hands. Are you planning to stay in City C for good? Gu Mingheng has changed a lot, unlike in my past life, where he was always cold and disdainful towards me. In this life he greets me with nothing but gentle smiles. I look at him, I can't shake the feeling that he's a stranger to me now. He's become far too unpredictable, now that the rose-tinted glasses from my infatuation are gone. I see Gu Mingheng for what he truly is, nothing special. City C is nice. I nodded in agreement. I might stay for a while, maybe even for the rest of my life. I let out a light laugh, but I won't be living too close to you, that's for sure. He was taken aback for a moment. Ran, he said, taking my hand in his. I'll just shift the company's focus to City C. Then, he looked so pitiful. As if I were the one who had wronged him, I pulled my hand away and wiped it with a tissue. Once I'm settled in City C, I can be with you every day, he said gently, looking at me, completely unfazed by my action. You were always chasing after me before, and now I understand. Ran, I like you, let's be together. I frowned. Hearing those words now felt like a curse being cast upon me. Our positions were completely reversed from our previous lives. I wasn't exactly thrilled by the change in him. My phone, which was on the table, started ringing just then. The screen displayed Huafanyan. My brow smoothed out. I was just thinking of answering it, using it as an excuse to leave this place, but Gu Mingheng was a step ahead of me and hung up directly. Ran, Huafanyan is no good. He's not only been undermining me all along, but he's also been carrying on with other women. Anger surged in my heart. Gu Mingheng, listen up, I will never like you, not in this lifetime. As I turned to leave, I added, instead of meddling in other people's business, you'd be better off keeping your own house in order. I will never fall for Gu Mingheng's sweet talk again, but I didn't manage to get away. Gu Mingheng grabbed my arm and stopped me. Why? His voice rose slightly. Is it because of Huafanyan? What's so great about following him? You've achieved so much at such a young age. Aren't you afraid he's just playing you for a fool? He actually has the nerve to say that. He's the last person who should be accusing others of being calculating. Furious, I turned around and slapped him. 8 years of scheming and deception began the moment I met Gu Mingheng, and perhaps it's still going on. That's right, he is more capable than you. He can give me a better life. I looked at him, finding it increasingly ridiculous. Gu Mingheng, why do you keep pestering me? Ever since my family turned you down that day, there's been no connection between us. When you think about it, my family never gave you any support. You should have known when to quit. Or are you still hung up on how shamelessly I chased after you back then? If so, you're a real fool. I was just playing with you. Once I saw clearly that you didn't have the capabilities I expected, of course I gave up on you. I said this on purpose. Lying. Do you understand now? Or is it that you've been looking down from your high horse since childhood, looking down on women who chase after you, insisting on finding one who plays hard to get? I raised an eyebrow at him. If I had kept chasing you, wouldn't you have just led me on and played me for a fool, just like you do with the women chasing you now? The answer, of course, is no. This is the hard-won lesson from my 8 years of struggle. He stood frozen in place as I easily wrenched my arm from his grasp. I walked away without a backward glance. Huafanyan called again. I answered. It's been a long time since you've been to City C. It's been so long since you came to see me. The man on the other end of the line chuckled softly. All right, I'll come see our Ran tomorrow. At this moment, I was truly reborn. 19. Gu Mingheng never came looking for me again, not even after the Sea City project ended. Huafangyan, on the other hand, stayed here the whole time, spending most of it with me. We're curled up together watching TV, holding a chip. I smiled at Huafangyan. How come you have so much free time abandoning the company? The company doesn't have legs. It's not going anywhere. He patted my head and said with a laugh. On the TV, the scene had reached the confession stage. The male lead poured his heart out to the female lead, presenting her with a rose he had personally chosen. With their task accomplished, the passion between them flared, and they fell into a deep, lingering kiss. I kept my head down, deeply uncomfortable, just waiting for the suggestive sounds to fade. I caught a glimpse of Huafangyan out of the corner of my eye. His ears were a little red. Ran. He called out to me suddenly. I looked up at him. I love you, he said. I looked into his eyes, so dark they were like an abyss that could pull you in. He said he loved me, but I had already felt his love. I mimicked his gesture, raising my hand to gently stroke his head. Huafangyan, I accept your love. You guided me through projects, bringing me honor and recognition. You taught me endlessly, indulged me, and gave me confidence. When I was lost in the despair of death, you suddenly descended to save me. I had already accepted your love through each and every event. I have a bad reputation. Everyone says I'm cold, ruthless, and always ready to deliver a harsh blow, he said, lowering his gaze. But I would never be that way with you. If I ever am, you have my permission to end me. I covered his mouth to stop him from saying more. He took that opportunity to grasp my hand and press a kiss into my palm. My hand trembled. It felt as though he had kissed my very heart. I trust you, I said, but if you fail, I'll expose you and ruin your reputation, I said, feigning a threat. He replied softly, all right. I looked into his deep eyes, then turned away uncomfortably. I love you too. I could hear his ragged breathing. He was getting closer and closer to me. I stood there frozen like a statue, completely at a loss. Ran, close your eyes. I closed my eyes. Something soft and slightly cool pressed against my lips. It was Huafangyan's lips. I gave it a lick, still carrying the crisp sweetness of soda. I suddenly snapped back to reality, taking a sharp breath. What had I just done? At that moment, Huafangyan stood before me and said with a smile, Ran, exhale. I opened my eyes and saw him smiling at me. In an instant, a wave of heat rushed to my face, turning it bright red. I'm going to sleep. You can watch TV by yourself. I stumbled to my feet, flustered and in a hurry. Without waiting for him to say anything, I turned and ran straight for my bedroom. Don't you dare knock on my door. I only faintly heard the man's soft chuckle. 20. I told Huafangyan that I intended to stay in City C for good. Huafangyan said okay. After that, I clearly noticed that most of the business operations had shifted to City C. Huafangyan had actually placed the company's primary focus in City C. This is an extremely dangerous and difficult decision. It was all because of me. As soon as I entered the company, I could hear the employees chatting casually. You all say the boss always has a stern face, but I don't get that impression. Sis, you've really hit the jackpot with your timing. Being close to the boss's wife now, of course the boss is thrilled. My heart was overflowing with love. The Hua Corporation in City C landed a new project. They originally intended to just give it a casual try, but who would have thought? This project caught the perfect wave. Riding that momentum, the Hua Corporation's branch completed its transformation, becoming a leader in this new industry. The City C branch is now just a hair's breadth behind the headquarters. The Hua family had firmly established itself in both cities, so Huafangyan could go wherever he pleased. In the blink of an eye, 8 years had passed. It was July 3rd again, the date of the incident from my previous life. Fangyan, it's been 8 years. I looked at our wedding photo. They talk about the 7-year itch, but it seems our bond is still strong. Fangyan walked over to me, pressed his forehead against mine, and held me close. We'll have many more 8-year anniversaries. I'll never let you go. Ran, I smiled. All right, it's getting late. The driver is waiting downstairs. Today is the day Huafangyan goes to sign a major project. It's very important. It took several rounds of negotiation to finally secure it. It was mostly because of Huafangyan. He said whenever there's a big project, he has to work overtime at the office and can't see me. There will be many ladies there today. Would you like to go and have some fun? He asked me. I could see he was reluctant to part with me, dragging out the time. He wanted me to stay with him. I smiled and said, all right, I'll go with you. Many other companies were also in attendance, all using the venue as an opportunity to discuss potential future collaborations. I suddenly caught sight of a familiar figure. Looking closer, it was Gu Mingheng. He was talking to someone else and didn't notice me, and standing beside him was a woman I had seen before. It was so long ago. All I remember is that her voice seemed soft and delicate too. It was time to sign the contract, so I urged Huafengyan to hurry over. I, for my part, joined the group of ladies. We chatted about clothes, accessories, entertainment, and so on, just trivial little things in life. Hey, look over there. That bridge seems quite lovely. Yes, the big tree by the bridge is covered in people's prayers and wishes. The bridge has such a classic, elegant charm. Let's go take a look. The ladies all chimed in agreement. Looking down at the water under the bridge, I felt nothing but a creeping dread, yet, I couldn't very well leave on my own, so I had to grit my teeth and follow along. As soon as I stepped outside, the broad river lay to my right. The ladies chatted and laughed merrily. I was some distance from the river, yet I felt as if its waters were about to surge toward me. It was as if I had been transported back to that night of lightning and thunder. The river water closed over me, suffocating me with a desperate, drowning breathlessness. I pinched myself hard, fighting to stay conscious. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Huafengyan's number. Huafengyan, I'm by the riverbank outside. I need to cross the bridge, and I'm scared. The voice on the phone said, I'm on my way. Ran, don't be afraid, take a deep breath and stay away from the river. I listened to the man's ragged breathing over the line. When Ran, you look pale, what's wrong? Someone asked me. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the silence. The ladies all turned their heads, looking quite surprised. Mr. Hua, what brings you here? Huafengyan walked straight towards me. He wrapped me in his coat and pulled me into his embrace. My apologies, my wife is sensitive to drafts. We must excuse ourselves. Huafengyan took me away. My fear melted away, replaced by a rising sense of security. By the time I realized what was happening, Huafengyan had already bundled me into the car. I buried my face in his shoulder, crying silently. What are you doing out here? Is the contract signed? He lowered his head and kissed my hair. His voice was low, yet it made me feel completely at ease. He said, the bridge here isn't much to look at. Let me take Ran home. E&D. Story 2. When my husband came home after filming, he gave me a hug as usual, yet, I vaguely sensed something unusual. Upon closer reflection, I noticed a sweet, cloying perfume scent on his chest, but he never wears perfume. When I told my best friend about this, she didn't take it seriously. What's the big deal about perfume? Maybe it got on him while rehearsing with a female co-star, I retorted. He never lets other actresses get that close to him. Maybe the makeup artist accidentally sprayed some while touching up on set. I shook my head. Troygu never wears cologne. Everyone in the industry knows that. He finishes work on time every day and video calls me as soon as he gets back to the hotel. He's a perfect husband with no flaws to be found. And everyone in the industry also knows he's a devoted husband who nearly got himself in trouble for you. Noah Chow frowned at me, her tone somewhat exasperated. Lila Fong, are you worried about something? I paused for a moment, then smiled. That won't be the case. Just as we were talking, Troy Gu's caller ID lit up. Lila. Aunt Wong said you only had 2 bites of salad for lunch today. I'd asked Shaoli to bring you the tiramisu you like. After you finish it, remember to take a walk before resting. I'll take you to see the newly released play tonight. On the other end of the phone, his voice was gentle and tender, as if soothing a startled fawn. Noah Chow kept shaking her head in amazement as she listened. If I posted this conversation online, no one would believe it's the eternally icy film Emperor Troy Gu. She had a point in saying so. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, Troy Gu has always maintained a cold and aloof, almost ascetic image. Everyone knows he dotes on his wife, but few realize just how far that devotion goes. We've known each other for 20 years, married for 17, and this level of thoughtful, meticulous tenderness, he reserves it solely for me. All my habits, what I like to eat or watch, when I'm happy or down, my favorite brand of art supplies, which artists' works I adore. He had it all in mind, engraved in his heart. Once, I lost my temper, complaining that he was too strict, and in a fit of anger, I checked into a hotel. When I returned home, I saw him sitting haggardly in the studio, having stayed up all night. The moment he saw me, he rushed to me like an arrow, pulling me into his arms, and said with a trembling voice, I'm sorry, Lila, I promise I won't do this again. Last year, I went to Venice for an art exhibition when the hotel suddenly caught fire. Troy Gu, who had gone out to buy me a midnight snack, went berserk trying to charge inside. Several security guards couldn't stop him. I came out through the emergency exit and shouted for him. And only then did he run out with reddened eyes, his body already licked by the flames. Because of this, he was left with a burned scar on his shoulder. Every time I see it, my heart aches unbearably, but he always just smiles and says, "This is my medal as Lila Fong's husband, Troy Gu loves me." To me, this is a fact more certain than the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. Of course, I love him deeply too, so, when it came to such a trivial matter as the sudden appearance of an unfamiliar scent of perfume on him, I noticed something was off immediately. I was born sensitive and inherited my mother's tendency to overthink and dwell on trivial matters. Any slight unusual sign in life would make me anxious and insecure. What does the scent of perfume on his chest imply? Given Troy Gu's personality, he would never let any actress get close to him, even when filming kissing scenes. He insists on using a body double every day after work. He would go straight back to the hotel to video call me, never attending any social events. So now, with his skyrocketing fame and status, what kind of occasion could make him break his own rules? Could it be that he's encountered some trouble and is hiding it from me to avoid worrying me? I decided to go check out the situation on set. It's best if nothing's wrong, but if there really is a problem, I need to prepare early. I gave Lin Yu a call. She's Troy Gu's personal stylist and also my best friend from art school. Back then, she was drowning in debt from a lawsuit. I lent her money to help her make a comeback and even introduced her to Troy Gu. Lin Yu almost jogged to come and greet me. After exchanging pleasantries, she smiled and pulled me into the dressing room. "Lila, it's been ages since you last visited the set. Everyone misses you so much." The movie Emperor Gu has been wearing a cold expression every day. He only smiles when you're around. I couldn't help but laugh and casually asked, "Has anything special happened on set recently?" "Yes. It's a huge deal." "What is it?" My heart tightened. The new drama's ratings broke records, and the investors increased their funding. "Isn't that big enough?" Lin Yu said with animated excitement. She has experienced too many ups and downs, yet always remains optimistic and cheerful. That's why I admire her. Troy Gu is filming a major scene, and Lin Yu is accompanying me as we wait in his private lounge. Passing by the set, I noticed several young and beautiful actresses rehearsing. All unfamiliar faces. A sudden thought crossed my mind. Could it be that Troy Gu was wearing that perfume scent for one of them? The thought jolted me awake. Then I laughed at myself. What was I thinking? That's Troy Gu we're talking about. Back when he starred in idol dramas, countless popular actresses threw themselves at him, yet he remained unmoved. Not even a single rumor surfaced. How could these newcomers be like this? What's wrong? Lin Yu asked. I pursed my lips but couldn't help asking. Did many new actresses join the crew? Lin Yu thought for a moment. Oh, you mean those. This production has grand scenes and many supporting roles, so the producer brought in some newcomers for auditions, but for the scenes with the award-winning actor Gu, they only cast seasoned performers. She looked at me mischievously and teased, "Lila, you were the department's recognized beauty back in art school, still worried about this?" I smiled helplessly. All right, you've seen right through me." Lin Yu put her arm around my shoulders and said with a smile, "You really can't shake off this habit of overthinking. Don't worry, those newcomers won't even get to see the face of the award-winning actor Gu. He never rehearses with them." After Lin Yu left, I sat on Troy Gu's exclusive sofa, sighing softly as I looked at the row of wedding photos of Troy Gu and me hanging on the wall. So the film crew is fine. And it's not because of any particular actress. The perfume scent on him might have been accidentally picked up while touching up makeup, or perhaps he just happened to pass by someone. Sigh. Noah Chiao and Lin Yu were right. If I hadn't married such a perfect husband like Troy Gu, being this sensitive and suspicious every day would have driven me crazy. I really do have a tendency to overthink things. Knock knock. A figure pushed the door open, carrying a cup of water. She bent down, respectfully placed the cup on the table, and said softly, "Mrs. Gu, please let me know if you need anything." I froze for a moment. This is Sui, Troy Gu's assistant. What I didn't expect was, she's still by Troy Gu's side. One day a few years ago, Troy Gu came back from work with an alarmingly gloomy expression. I noticed his unusual mood and pressed him about what had happened. He sat on the sofa, silent for a long time, before finally speaking with difficulty, saying he had encountered the family of that person from back then. When Troy Gu first entered the industry, the film and television company his parents ran was maliciously shorted, with trade secrets leaked, ultimately leading to bankruptcy. Unable to bear the burden, his parents both took their own lives, and Sui was the biological daughter of the whistleblower. By the time Troy Gu learned this truth, Sui had already been working by his side for 3 full months. His eyes were red, and his hands trembled. "Lila, what should I do? Although she has nothing to do with this, I can't help wanting to take revenge on her. I even want to ruin her future." I held him and whispered comfortingly, "It's all in the past now. Don't force yourself. If you don't want to see her, we can assign someone else." That day, for the first time, I saw him like a wounded child, clinging to me tightly and refusing to let go. Some time later, I cautiously brought up the matter again, and by then, he had calmed down. I reassigned her to publicity work. "I'm a bit worried. Why not just fire her? Can you handle it this way?" His expression was very calm. "You're right. I can't live in hatred forever. Let's consider her a lesson in tempering my character. Don't worry, I'm fine." Later, when I occasionally visited the set, I never saw Nsui again, nor heard anything more about the matter, thinking he had already let it go. I didn't expect to see Nsui again today in his lounge. "I remember Troy Gu's assistant wasn't you," Nsui smiled awkwardly. "Assistant Lee is on leave, so we from the publicity team are taking turns to cover. Thanks for your trouble." I nodded with a smile. Nsui has an ordinary appearance, not tall, with a slender frame, plain features, and dressed simply. She always appears cautious in both speech and action. Just like a fragile, defenseless little white rabbit. She gave a slight bow and said softly, "Mrs. Gu, I shall take my leave now." As she lowered her head, I caught a glimpse of her crumpled skirt hem, still bearing some strange marks, as if, fresh from a passionate encounter, Troy Gu had just returned from filming a scene, dressed in a tailored suit that accentuated his tall, upright figure and outstanding demeanor. His tall frame leaned against the doorframe, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips as he looked at me. "Rare to see you take the initiative to visit the set." I walked over and hugged him. "Then should I come more often? The crew seems to welcome me quite warmly." He ruffled my hair with a doting tone. "Mostly because I missed you. Why care about them?" I hesitated before speaking. "Nsui just brought me tea earlier." After a brief silence, he responded softly with a hum. "She's in charge of publicity, Lila, don't worry. I've long been able to handle this objectively." I looked up at him and said gently, "Mom always said you were strong-willed and could overcome any difficulty. Troy Gu, you're so outstanding now, with your career flourishing." Her judgment was truly accurate. His deep eyes gazed at me quietly, for a long while, then he leaned down and planted a light kiss on my forehead. "Lila, it's because of you." A week later, after visiting the art exhibition, I passed by the film set and had a sudden idea. I made some nourishing chicken soup with love and went to see him. The crew member greeted me with a smile, and I winked at her, saying I wanted to give actor Gu a little surprise. Arriving at his private dressing room, I knocked on the door, only to hear Troy Gu's cold voice from inside. "Not a good time right now." I chuckled and said, "Troy, it's me." A beep sound, the electronic lock clicked open, and I pushed the door to enter. The curtains were drawn inside, making the room somewhat dim. Troy Gu sat on the sofa, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Why are you here, Lila?" I pouted. "I came to bring you some nutritious soup. You sounded so harsh just now." Pause for 5 minutes, he said to the camera, then he stood up, rubbing his temples wearily, and smiled. "I was going over the script with my colleagues and didn't realize you had arrived." I asked quietly, "Haven't you finished filming yet?" I told them to take a break first." His eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. "No matter how busy you are, you should always drink the soup your wife makes." His camera was still on, so I didn't approach but sat down across from him instead. "You've worked hard, let me feed you." I opened the thermos and scooped a spoonful to offer him. He smiled and leaned in, ready to take a bite. Suddenly, his brows furrowed slightly, and a muffled sound escaped his throat. "What's wrong?" I asked, holding up the soup spoon. He narrowed his eyes, swallowed that mouthful of soup, and after a few seconds, his voice sounded somewhat heavy. "Nothing, maybe just tired, feeling a bit dizzy." I looked at him with concern. "Then I'll leave first. You should rest quickly. We'll need to continue taking photos later." He pressed his lips together, showing a hint of apology. "Next time, let me know before you come, and I'll clear my schedule." His voice carried a trace of weariness. As I pushed the door open to leave, I glanced back. Troy Gu leaned against the sofa, his head slightly tilted back. The light and shadows filtered through the gaps in the curtains, dancing across his body with each breath. When I reached the dressing room, a faint unease settled in my chest, and I turned back. Just as I rounded the corner, I saw the door to Troy Gu's lounge open. A figure emerged from within. As she looked around, I recognized her face. It was Nsui, still dressed plainly, still appearing delicate. The only thing that stood out was the smudged lipstick at the corners of her lips, leaving a faint trace. I froze, unmoving. From stepping out to the dressing room, to turning back, it had only been a mere 60 seconds. When had Nsui gone in? In this fleeting moment, Or perhaps, the image of Troy Gu's spacious sofa flashes through my mind, so spacious, big enough to hide a person behind. At 5 in the afternoon, I watched Nsue come out of the film set and walk toward the parking lot. She wasn't tall, yet she drove a Land Rover. I followed in my car, and 10 minutes later, her vehicle entered an upscale residential area. This is an upscale residential area with an elegant environment. I felt slightly surprised, and Nsue was merely in publicity, yet had such a family background. I was driving a Porsche, and the security guard let me through when I mentioned I was visiting a friend. I quickly located the spot where Nsue's Land Rover was parked and stopped my car not far away. Staring blankly at her villa, I was at a complete loss. I couldn't even explain the reason for following her. Perhaps it was the disheveled hem of her skirt, perhaps it was the smudged lipstick. In any case, it was instinct driving me, OCD acting up, wild thoughts running amok, utter helplessness. I felt somewhat dejected, somewhat guilty, and somewhat self-loathing. After sitting for a while, I was just about to leave. Suddenly, a car slowly approached, its model all too familiar. Troy Gu's black Rolls-Royce. In an instant, I felt as if frozen, my entire body stiff and immobile. The Rolls-Royce came to a quiet stop in front of Nsue's house. The car door remained shut, with no one getting out. Trembling, I fished out my phone and dialed Troy Gu's number. The call connected almost instantly. "Lila, what's wrong?" His voice was as gentle as ever. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Troy, where are you? Why don't you come home early to rest today? I just left the set. There's an important investor who wants to discuss a new project, so I'm taking someone over there now." He chuckled lightly. "Who are you taking?" I asked slowly. "Assistant in." Through the windshield, I saw Nsue hurriedly walking out with a document bag and getting into Troy Gu's car. On the phone, his voice remained gentle. "Perhaps it's just fatigue from recent work. Nothing serious. Lila, assistant in is here. We're about to set off and should be home by 10 tonight." Hanging up the phone, I let out a long sigh. His attitude was calm and completely open, so everything was just a coincidence that an investor wanted to meet, a coincidence that Nsue became his assistant, and a coincidence that I did such an absurd thing today. I watched the luxury car drive away, circling the fountain and heading toward the gate. Just as I was about to start the car and leave, I suddenly froze. The gate wasn't locked. Slowly, I turned my head and looked toward Nsue's villa. This is an exquisitely designed modern-style building. Warm light spills through the floor-to-ceiling windows, with several carefully tended succulent plants on the balcony. Everything exudes coziness. I froze in the car, like a paused frame. 10 minutes later, I stood before the villa's entrance. The door is equipped with a smart lock. As if guided by some supernatural force, I entered a string of numbers. "Our wedding anniversary." Beep, the door opened. I was dazed for a moment. Everything before me seems unreal, like an illusion. I instinctively pinched my own arm. "It hurts. This is not a dream." Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and push the door open. I freeze in place, expecting to see an ordinary home setup. But what greets my eyes is a completely different scene. Crystal chandeliers. An entire wall dedicated to home theater. Giant posters, custom-made sofas. It doesn't feel like a home, more like a private cinema. I stood at the doorway, quietly surveying the surroundings. My heart sank bit by bit. I've seen this cinema before. During several video calls, Troy Gu mentioned he was reading scripts, with the background showing this exact theater setup. For no apparent reason, I let out a soft chuckle. In the silent house, the laughter sounded particularly jarring. I slowly scanned the room. The door of the dressing room was slightly ajar, and at a glance, I spotted something familiar. It was the tie I gave Troy Gu last month, his favorite blue striped pattern. I had specially bought it from Italy and even had the shop embroider his initials on it. Now, that tie was crumpled into a ball, stuffed under the leg of the dressing table, covered in dust, used as makeshift furniture fittings. I went upstairs to the second floor and entered the master bedroom, where an oversized bed immediately caught my eye. It was much larger than standard dimensions, as if custom-made. Scattered at the head of the bed was a torn piece of lingerie, seductive and alluring. In the walk-in closet, a row of men's clothing, costumes, suits, loungewear, each piece reflecting his taste. In the bathroom, paired toothbrush cups, bath towels, and cologne. I picked up that bottle of women's perfume. The bottle still carried traces of its lingering scent. The silence was terrifying. Time seemed to freeze, as if the world had stopped turning. I was trapped in this silence, unable to move, suffocating in agony. I don't know how long it had been when faint sounds of someone coming upstairs could be heard, accompanied by voices. The woman asked softly, "You've had a cold recently, and your nose is still stuffy. "Are you really not staying the night here?" The man replied indifferently, "There's heating in the car." I promised my wife I'd be home by 10. I was suddenly terrified to the core. Instinctively unwilling to face the truth about to be revealed, I panicked and hid on the balcony, crouching against the corner of the wall. The glass reflected two figures, painfully clear, Troy Gu and Sway. I curled up in the corner, trembling all over. Troy Gu was leisurely removing his coat, tie, and wristwatch, and Sway stood to the side and said softly, "You can go back a little later today." Troy Gu remained expressionless, his movements uninterrupted, and Sway added, "Didn't you tell her you had investors to meet? It's the perfect excuse to stay a bit longer." "Stop talking," Troy Gu interrupted coldly, and Sway bit her lip, then after a moment said softly, "Weren't you very immersed in the scene just now?" Troy Gu's hands paused at the buttons. He looked down at her without a word, and Sway's fingers slid down his shirt. "On said earlier, you didn't get your fill, did you? Do you want to? Stay until you're satisfied." As ambiguous sounds came from the room, heavy rain began to fall outside the window. It was the heaviest rain since the start of autumn. I gaze at the blurred lights in the rain curtain, as if swallowed by that haze, sinking into an abyss. At this very moment, I don't even have the courage to question, afraid of retching, afraid of seeing a nauseating scene I'll never forget in this lifetime. My legs felt weak, lacking even the strength to stand up. Before her passing, my mother once sighed and said, "I inherited her indecisiveness but not her resolute determination." Fortunately, I met someone as steady and reliable as Troy Gu. With him by my side, I can live a worry-free life. Mom saw through me but misjudged Troy Gu. As night fell, the city lights twinkled like stars, and Sway emerged from the dressing room, clad in a silk nightgown, stretching lazily. The ding of the elevator sounded from downstairs. A woman in her 50s or 60s walked in, leading a little girl. "Mommy, I'm home from school." The girl called out in a sweet, childish voice, and Sway smiled and crouched down, opening her arms. At this moment, the bedroom door opened, and Troy Gu walked out in casual clothes, his hair still slightly damp. The little girl's eyes lit up as she called out cheerfully, "Daddy." Troy Gu walked up to the girl, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly as he gently pinched her cheek, a delicate little face, with a faint resemblance to him in the eyes and brows. The girl chattered away about amusing incidents from elementary school, while Sway listened gently by her side. The scene looked so warm and harmonious that it was enviable. As she spoke, the little girl wanted to throw herself into Troy Gu's arms. Troy Gu took a step back to avoid her, his tone gentle yet firm. Tian, have you forgotten the rules?" Tian pouted her little mouth in grievance. "Why can all the other kids hug their daddies, but I can't? I'm all grown up now. I won't dirty daddy's clothes." Troy Gu cast a cold glance at Sway, and Sway quickly stepped forward, coaxing softly, "Daddy has to go to the film set to shoot tonight and can't mess up his makeup. Be good." Tian, why does Daddy have to shoot every night?" And Sway fell silent for a moment, then turned her head and asked quietly, "Do you really have to go tonight? Can't you ask for leave?" Troy Gu's face suddenly darkened. "If she comes to visit the set again, you leave immediately. If I ever see you appearing in front of her again, whether on purpose or by accident, you know what will happen." After speaking coldly, he glanced at the time on his phone, threw on his coat, and strode away. A few minutes later, seizing the moment when no one was paying attention, I swiftly fled the villa. I drove mechanically, speeding down the road. The downpour was relentless, raindrops pounding heavily against the windshield, forming winding trails of water on the glass surface. 13 years ago, it was on a rainy day just like this. At 17, while nestled in my mother's arms watching the rainy scene outside the window, I encountered Troy Gu, looking utterly disheveled in the downpour. He had just come out from an audition, completely drenched, standing by the roadside in a daze. I asked the driver to stop, then stepped out with an umbrella to offer him a ride. He shook his head and declined, his voice hoarse and his eyes dim. It turned out that the audition failed, and the director humiliated her harshly. I handed him an umbrella and said with a smile, "Here, take it, don't catch a cold." He froze, his dark, bright eyes fixed on me, and only after a long pause did he murmur his thanks. I tilted my head and added, "When you become a big star, remember to pay me back." Watching him leave the theater, I turned to look out the window. The stubborn young man stood quietly in the rain, clutching that blue umbrella, like an eternal painting. Later, we reunited at the Art Academy. Later on, my mother recognized his acting talent and decided to invest in nurturing him, sending us to Hollywood for further training. We've been married for 7 years, and Tian is already in elementary school. In other words, just 1 year after getting married, Sway became pregnant. From the first time he mentioned collaborating with Ensway until now, only half a year has passed. It had only been 2 or 3 months since Mom passed away from illness. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, I burst into tears like a helpless child. Before turning 30, my life had been smooth sailing, beautiful, wealthy, and well-liked. Everyone said I was a kind and gentle girl, although my parents are divorced. They get along peacefully. Both my CEO mother and artist father have given me the most selfless love. After marriage, Troy Gu doted on and loved me, with every glance and gesture filled with affection. I suffer from infertility, and the doctor said it would be very difficult for me to conceive. I was utterly heartbroken. Troy Gu, however, didn't care at all and laughed, saying it was just as well. Lila Fong would forever be his alone. He held me in the palm of his hand, treasuring me like a precious gem. Yet, as it turned out, at the very same time, while I was still drowning in the grief of losing my mother, while I had given him all my trust and dependence, unable to live without him, he and Ensway betrayed me. I don't understand. I really don't understand. The world seems to have suddenly torn off its gentle mask, revealing the ugliest truth. I'm overwhelmed by complex emotions: shock, anger, fear, despair. Mom, what should I do? I whispered between sobs. Bang. A loud bang, a violent impact struck. The world spun wildly, and I was thrown out of the car. I lay on the cold ground, gazing at the neon lights in the distance. The city lights seemed to blur, little by little, gradually dimming, vanishing without a trace. When I opened my eyes again, I was already in a hospital room. A scream echoed in my ears. Noah Chow rushed over excitedly, hugging me tightly and crying bitterly. Lila, you're finally awake. Do you know you've been unconscious for 2 weeks? If you hadn't woken up, Troy Gu would have gone crazy. It's been trending several times. I weakly spoke. Troy Gu. Noah Chow quickly comforted me. He's here. The doctor just shooed him back to rest. Ah, you'll see when you meet him. He's pushed aside all his work these days and looks utterly worn out. As the doctor examined me, Noah Chow kept chattering by my ear. He was in the emergency room for 3 full days of resuscitation. He stood guard outside the door for 3 full days. Without eating or drinking, he never left for a moment. When I was finally wheeled out of the emergency room, he collapsed heavily to the ground, frightening everyone. Over the following 2 weeks, he stayed by my bedside without leaving, growing visibly thinner with each passing day, his eyes hollow and empty. The only day he left the hospital, he went to a temple on the outskirts of the city. A passerby filmed him and posted it on a short video platform. Let me show you. Noah Chow brought her phone close to me. A light rain drifted before the temple gates, where Troy Gu knelt on the steps. He stood with his head bowed, his clothes soaked by the rain, motionless, like a statue of despair. Comments flooded below the video. An Oscar-worthy performance. Praying for his beloved wife. This is true love. Noah Chow's voice trembled slightly. Lila, he truly loves you so much. I really envy you too. I gazed at the sky outside the window, gloomy and overcast. Not a single ray of light could be seen. I gently closed my eyes. He stumbled into the ward, and I could barely recognize the man before me as Troy Gu. He looked utterly haggard, with sunken eyes and a gaunt frame that was almost unrecognizable. He walked dazedly to the bedside, his trembling hand reaching out to touch my face, as if confirming something. Lila, you're finally awake. All of this is real, right? His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. I looked at him quietly without speaking. Troy Gu crouched by the bed, his voice choked with emotion. Everything will be all right. I'll always be by your side. He is as good as his word. Though awake, I'm still too weak to do anything but lie down. Troy Gu handles everything personally. Every day, he carefully feeds me water, patiently helps me wipe my body, remembers the time for changing dressings, and has memorized the usage of each medicine. At night, he gently holds me in his arms, his voice so tender it could melt. Lila, it's my fault for not protecting you well enough. From now on, I won't take any night shoots anymore. I'll come home on time to be with you. Okay. Do you know what I was thinking outside the emergency room? Never mind. You're so sensitive. I better not tell you. I'm afraid it might scare you. Lila, you can never leave me in this lifetime. Do you understand? The medical staff all marveled, saying they had never seen such a considerate husband. Noah Chow said that in the future she would look for a partner just like Troy Gu. I gradually regained the ability to eat and could get out of bed to walk around, but I remained taciturn throughout. Troy Gu softly reassured me, saying it was a stress response, that staying silent was okay, and that having him there was enough. I was like a wounded little animal, shutting myself away, waiting quietly through the long passage of time, waiting for the wounds to heal. That day, Troigu was intently peeling fruit when I looked up and noticed Nsuy's figure appearing at the door. We silently locked eyes across Troigu, and Nsui, unlike her usual cautious self, stared directly at me. "Assistant N is here." I tilted my head and spoke slowly. Troigu lowered his eyes, unhurriedly finished peeling the last piece, handed the fruit to me, and then turned to ask calmly, "Assistant N, weren't the contracts all signed already?" Nsui walked in, her expression timid. "The brand has an endorsement contract that requires your personal signature." Troigu frowned but remained silent. I spoke calmly, "Why are you the one delivering the endorsement contract?" Nsui's gaze drifted toward Troigu, her voice tinged with grievance. "I'm about to resign, and since I don't have much work on hand, I'll just help the PR department with this errand." "Resign?" I took a bite of fruit and turned to ask Troigu, "Is Assistant N leaving?" Troigu wiped his hands unhurriedly, a mocking smile appearing on his face. "I'm just an actor. Why would I care about such trivial matters?" And Nsui's eyelashes fluttered as her eyes suddenly reddened. "Mrs. Gu, to be honest, it's my ex-husband who wants to take our child abroad. Enough." Troigu stood up, cutting her off. "My wife needs rest and shouldn't be disturbed. Let's sign outside." The moment they left the ward, I quietly slipped out of bed. Turning the corner, I heard Ansui's tearful voice coming from the fire escape. I approached silently. Tian hasn't seen you for a month. She keeps asking me why daddy doesn't come visit her." "I'll agree to go abroad. Just spend tonight celebrating Tian's birthday with her. She's never had a birthday with her father before. We should have a proper farewell, shouldn't we, Troy?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she gazed up at Troigu, looking utterly pitiful. Troigu stood as straight as a statue. I never heard him utter a single word. Troigu returned to the ward, chatting and laughing with the doctor. With a cheerful expression, he gently intertwined his fingers with mine. "Lila, the doctor said you can be discharged in 2 more days of observation. You've finally made it through." I nodded and softly replied, "Yes, we've finally made it this far," as if remembering something. He casually said, "Oh, there's an issue with the contract assistant and send over. I need to go to the office this afternoon to handle it. I'll be back soon." I looked up at him. "How long will it take?" "Don't want me to leave." He laughed. "Don't worry, I'll definitely be back before 6. I slowly closed my eyes and said softly, "All right." At 5 in the afternoon, I went through the discharge procedures. The nurses all looked surprised. "The movie Emperor isn't here at such an important time." I smiled at them. "It's okay, I can manage on my own." At 6 in the afternoon, I took a taxi and arrived at that upscale apartment complex. The security guard still remembered me and greeted me warmly. "Here to see your friend again." I nodded. "Could you please open the door?" "No problem." When we arrived at the destination, I stared at the familiar door in front of me. My phone vibrated, a message from Troigu. "Lila, what would you like for dinner? I'll bring it for you." I expressionlessly turned off my phone and entered the password. Beep, the door opened. The family of 3 was gathered in the dining room. A delicate cake sat at the center of the dining table, with Nsui humming cheerfully while adjusting the birthday decorations on Tian's head. Troigu stood with his back to me, intently staring at his phone. "A birthday cake," I murmured softly, and Nsui's singing suddenly stopped. She turned to look at me, her expression instantly freezing. Troigu's entire body seemed to have been cast with a paralysis spell. Though maintaining his original posture, he appeared to have lost all vitality. "Big sister, are you also here for my birthday party?" Tian's cheeks flushed with excitement as she asked innocently. I smiled faintly. "Yes, happy birthday to the little birthday girl." "Thank you, sister. Can I have a word with your dad?" "Sure." I walked step by step to Troigu's side. Looking down at him, Troigu sat there. His profile was tense, his fingers gripping the phone, turning white, motionless. "Sorry to interrupt your family's warm moment, but there's a document that needs your signature." I gently placed the document on the table. The title page clearly read, "Divorce Agreement." Troigu's entire body began to tremble slightly, yet he never looked up at me. "Sign it as soon as possible, Emperor Gu. If it takes more than 3 days, I'll go public. You're at the peak of your career right now. I assume you don't want this to end up in court." I turned to look at Nsui. Her eyes were wide with panic and fear, yet faintly tinged with triumph and excitement. I let out a cold laugh. "Nsui, congratulations on getting your wish. I'll leave this man to you. Make sure you treat him well." After saying that, I turned to leave. Troigu, who had been keeping his head down, suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice trembling. "Lila." I broke free from his grasp, my tone icy. "Don't touch me. Disgusting." During the days of bed rest to recover from my injuries, I came to understand many things. at the brink of life and death. Everything else is just superficial wounds. Before going through this ordeal, I was sensitive, timid, and when faced with betrayal, I felt pain and hesitation, lacking even the courage to confront it directly. After enduring this calamity, I realized that nothing in this world is more important than staying alive. To live well, means calmly accepting the uncertainties of life. When betrayal and deceit come, when life hits rock bottom, one must also learn to stand up and become stronger. That legal document was drafted by a lawyer while Troigu was away. The company Troigu recently signed with was invested in by my mother. Over the years, my mother and Troigu have entered into a valuation adjustment mechanism agreement. My mother has always had a sharp eye for investments, and Troigu's acting skills are truly outstanding. The 30 million invested in him back then has now multiplied 100-fold, enough to keep me comfortable for a lifetime. As for the rest, the mansions, jewelry, luxury watches, even Troigu, I don't want any of it. Life is long, and I no longer wish to be entangled with loathsome people or matters. I didn't go home but chose to stay at my mother's old house instead. After drafting the legal documents, I had the place renovated. Before bed at night, I carefully tucked in the corners of the blanket and whispered to myself in the silence, "Be strong. It's okay to be alone. Things will get better eventually." On the morning of the third day, I woke up in the empty villa and found Troigu in the room. He sat quietly by the bed, keeping his distance from me. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting his figure in a hazy silhouette, his gaze deep and inscrutable. I looked at him calmly. "Are you here to submit the signed documents?" Troigu stared at me, his expression one of utter anguish, his voice hoarse. "I won't agree to a divorce, Lila." I indifferently closed my eyes. "Please leave. I don't want to have the studio cleaned again." After a moment of silence, his hoarse voice sounded in my ears. At first, I intended to treat Ansue as just an ordinary employee, but on the day I asked her to leave, she suddenly knelt down, confessing that she had recognized me long ago. She admitted that if she hadn't insisted on buying an expensive toy back then, her parents wouldn't have sold confidential information, and my parents wouldn't have died because of it. I thought she was innocent and could still convince myself, but she told me she was the root of everything. I suddenly lost control and angrily grabbed her by the neck. "I've always known there's a dark side to my personality. When I'm with you, I can keep it in check well, but that day it just erupted. And since then, it's been unstoppable." It seems Ansue came specifically to atone for her sins. No matter how much I hit or scolded her, even knocking her unconscious, she kept coming back, as if addicted, until one time, when I was drunk and lost control, I ended up sleeping with her. That was the only time between us. I swear on my career and future. After the audition that day, I drank too much. When I realized I'd committed an unforgivable mistake, I tried to drive her away, but she told me she was pregnant. "Lila, I originally planned to build my career with you, but the thought that this child might bring some comfort to the spirits of my murdered parents made me hesitate. In the end, I chose to keep it." During your time in the hospital, I came to understand that you are the most important person in my life. I decided to cut off this mistake, to send them abroad and never see them again. That's why, at the hospital that day, I promised to spend one last birthday with the child. I never had any feelings for Ansue. To me, she was just a woman who happened to help me continue my bloodline by accident, like a surrogate, nothing more. Meeting occasionally over the years was only for the child's sake. That's how it is. For these past few years, I've lived every day in guilt and pain, terrified you'd see this wretched side of me. I never imagined I could avoid it forever. Lila, you're the only one in my heart. For the sake of all these years we've shared, give me a chance to start over. I've long decided never to see them again. They won't appear in our lives anymore. Lila, I can't live without you, and you can't live without me either, right?" He spoke these words in one breath, his tone sincere and earnest, his eyes filled with pain and despair. The room fell into a deathly silence. After a long pause, I spoke calmly. "I saw everything." He stared at me with profound intensity. "Are you guessing what I saw?" He pressed his lips tightly together, remaining silent. I let out a cold laugh and said slowly, "On the day of the car accident, I saw her hiding in your dressing room having an affair. Saw you and Ansue entangled in that apartment. Troigu, enjoying yourself. Every moment I see you in the hospital makes me sick to my stomach. Today, I witnessed you crossing moral boundaries yet again. You're still lying to me, even staking your career on it. Troigu, aren't you afraid of ruining everything you've worked for? So, betrayal, cruelty, scheming, and deceit, this is the real you." I spoke word by word. Troigu's face gradually turned pale as I spoke calmly. He showed a look of despair, his body slowly hunched over, and finally collapsed to the ground. I continued. After every affair, you make a point to shower. What are you afraid of? That I might smell someone else's perfume on you? Or is it that deep down, you're ashamed too? That apartment, was it deliberately decorated like a private cinema just to handle my unexpected video calls, using our wedding anniversary as the password, just like at home? Was it to appear natural and familiar when coming back with me, so I wouldn't suspect anything, so you wouldn't slip up? You really are cunning, aren't you? Why bother, Troy Goo? Aren't you tired? I'm stepping out of this relationship so your family of 3 can live openly and honestly. Wouldn't that be better? Stop saying you love me. Every time I think of you coming home pretending to be affectionate right after being intimate with Nsue, every time I recall our past intimate moments, I feel nauseous, physically sick. I'm even terrified to step through that door. Troy Goo, get lost. Never let me see you again. I turned away, not giving him another glance. Outside the window, the sky gradually brightened, and the studio returned to its usual tranquility. He left without a sound. The lawyer said Troy Goo refused the divorce. Have you mentioned the possibility of litigation? I did, and he said it was acceptable. I frowned. The legal advisor hesitated, as if holding back words. I've been handling divorce cases for years, and I get the sense that Mr. Goo isn't concerned about the studio or the assets. Then what is he concerned about? Probably, he just doesn't want to get divorced. If it goes to court, unclear assets will only drag the process out longer. Late at night, I pulled back the curtains and looked down at the street below. A luxury car was quietly parked by the roadside. It arrived late at night and left in the early morning. For a month, this happened every single day. I wrapped myself in my coat and walked downstairs to approach the car. Through the car window, Troy Goo was asleep inside, wrapped in a coat. I tapped on the glass, and his eyes snapped open. His eyelashes fluttered, revealing an expression of disbelief. He pushed the door open and stood before me, his hands nervously clenching and unclenching. Lila. As soon as he spoke, his voice choked, as if he couldn't continue. After a few seconds, he slowly went on. I didn't mean to appear in your sight. I just couldn't sleep. My mind is filled with thoughts of you. That place is covered with traces of you everywhere. I'm on the verge of breaking down. Only here can I find a little rest. Lila. Let me stay here. I promise I won't disturb your life. Then I'll just move out. I interrupted him. He froze. Where are you going? I remained silent. He swayed slightly. No, Lila, you can't leave. In the night, he muttered to himself, frantic and flustered. I gave him a cold stare. Didn't you cause all this? Since you refused to part amicably, filing for divorce means I'll have to see you again and again, so I might as well leave. Once we've lived apart for 2 years, we can get divorced. Right. Troy Goo's face was deathly pale, his gaze filled with despair. Lila, do you hate me this much? I lowered my eyes, my expression indifferent. It's not so much hate as disgust. I'm so repulsed that I don't even want a share of your assets, nor do I wish to waste a single second on you and your lover. From now on, we go our separate ways. You continue your acting career, and let me rebuild my life. If I happen to meet someone new, even better. It will serve as proof that our relationship has truly ended. Troy Goo, stop deluding yourself. I will never forgive you in this lifetime, not ever. I turned and walked away. Behind me, the deep autumn night was silent and still. I booked a flight to New Zealand. Leaving this city, for me, is a process of completely saying goodbye to the past. I didn't inform anyone, spent 2 full days packing my belongings, and took a taxi to the airport early on the 3rd morning. In the car, I fell asleep exhausted. Waking up, I found myself in an unfamiliar room. The room was elegantly and exquisitely furnished, with dense bamboo groves and plum gardens outside the window, and rolling mountains in the distance. This was a secluded mountain villa. A lady in white entered, smiling, and saying, Mrs. Goo, it's time to take your medicine. My heart sank to the depths. Where is Troy Goo? Mr. Goo will be here soon. The mountain road is slippery and hard to navigate. But he said he'd definitely be home by 7 o'clock. Where are all my personal belongings? The nurse smiled and said, Please take your medicine first. I'm not very clear about the specific details. I asked calmly, What illness do I have? You were involved in a car accident some time ago, which caused an impact to your brain. The doctor diagnosed you with delusional disorder, and you need to take medication regularly, so I'm under house arrest now. Yes, there are no cars at the villa. People can come in from outside, but none of us can leave. Besides, your current physical condition isn't suitable for going out. I threw the medicine out the window and looked up at her. Since I'm suffering from delusions, doesn't that mean anything I do is justifiable? The nurse's face showed fear as she hurriedly left. At 7 in the evening, Troy Gu arrived, dressed in casual business attire. He held a bouquet of roses in his hand, his hair and clothes damp from the autumn rain, carrying the chill of the mountains. While straightening his clothes, he smiled and said, "Baby, the rain was too heavy today, and the car broke down halfway up the mountain. I walked several kilometers to get home and finally made it back before 7. I stared at him coldly. Home? Isn't your real home that apartment within Sway? Your lover and child are there." He turned his head, his eyes filled with adoration. "Baby, are you throwing a tantrum with me again?" I grabbed the glass vase nearby and hurled it at him. The vase struck his forehead, leaving a bloody mark, exactly where he had been injured while filming years ago. He remained expressionless, bent down to pick up the pieces of the vase, and said gently, "Sweetheart, don't you like this vase? It's my fault. I'll go buy the work of that designer you love tomorrow, okay?" I suddenly broke down and shouted, "Why do you have to do this? Why? Isn't it enough that I leave? You cheated. I just wanted a peaceful breakup. I didn't even think about revenge. Didn't think about exposing you and Sway. Isn't that enough?" Troy Gu looked at her with a pained expression and said softly, "Darling, we're husband and wife. How can we separate? Don't shout so loudly. The weather is dry right now, and it's bad for your throat." I stared at him in shock, feeling nothing but strangeness. Was this still the same man I'd been married to for 5 years? Is this still the same award-winning actor adored by countless young women? In my heart, I felt both lost and terrified. 5 days after moving into this mountain villa, I gave up the idea of escaping. The villa was located in a remote valley with no signal at all, and only a nurse and a housekeeper were there to take care of daily needs. For days of continuous rain, the mountain roads were muddy and impassable on foot. Leaving Troy Gu's car as the only means of transportation, his daily schedule was unpredictable, yet he always returned punctually at 7 in the evening, just as punctual as before. He gave me complete freedom, never imposing any demands. Instead, he became even gentler and more patient than before. Most of the time, I would quietly curl up on the sofa while he enthusiastically chatted with me about various topics, new film shoots, showbiz gossip, his favorite historical anecdotes. I later found out that his daily commute to the set from here took 2 hours each way, totaling 4 hours spent on the road every day, even during heavy rainstorms. He never once canceled our meetings. Puzzled, I asked, "Don't you find it exhausting?" His gaze was gentle and bright. "Seeing you makes me not tired anymore." "Then why did you betray me back then?" He smiled, without any concealment. After moving into this house, he seemed to have decided to be completely honest with me. In my youth, I witnessed my parents' tragic deaths, later had my family property seized by relatives, and after entering the entertainment industry, found myself entangled in all sorts of overt and covert struggles. I needed an outlet for extreme stress, but these methods, I couldn't bear to use them on you. I couldn't help but feel the irony. "So you betrayed your marriage instead?" Troy Gu looked at me quietly and let out a soft sigh. "For me, desire and true love are different. Within Sway, no matter how I treated her, I never felt any psychological burden. Darling, my heart has never left you." He stood up, carefully retrieved a red silk scarf from the room, and looked at me with tender eyes. "Darling, this is the scarf you gave me on the day we first met. I've treasured it all these years. From that day on, my heart has belonged only to you." I became withdrawn and sullen, lost in melancholy day after day. Troy Gu asked me how he could make me happy. I glanced at him and said listlessly, "I want to see Noah Chiao. Can you let me out?" He smiled. "You haven't fully recovered yet. Why go so far? Why not invite her over instead?" I forced down my wildly beating heart. "Is it really possible?" Troy Gu stroked my hair. "Whatever Lila wants, I will fulfill." The next day, he really drove Noah Chiao up the mountain. Noah Chiao rushed over and hugged me as soon as she saw me. "Lila Fong, I was wondering where you disappeared to all this time. Turns out you've been hiding in this paradise to recuperate." I held her tightly, feeling both thrilled and anxious. At the dinner table, just as I was looking for a chance to slip the note I'd written to Noah Chiao, Troy Gu suddenly spoke up, casually asking Noah Chiao how the investment in the new movie was going. Noah Chiao excitedly said it was absolutely fantastic. Her whole family had invested their assets into it and even signed a valuation adjustment mechanism agreement. "Mr. Gu, don't you dare back out halfway, or my whole family will be left penniless." Haha. Noah Chiao smiled with childlike innocence. Troy Gu smiled and said, "You're Lila's friend. How could I let her friend suffer any loss?" A chill ran down my spine. Troy Gu looked at me with gentle eyes. "Lila, having a friend to keep you company must have lifted your spirits, hasn't it?" I nodded stiffly. 2 days later, Troy Gu came to visit again, bringing Lin Yu along. Lin Yu's eyes welled up with tears the moment she saw me. Lila Fong, I was so worried when you were lying in the hospital bed between life and death. Now that I see you've recovered, I can finally rest easy. Lin Yu lost both her parents at a young age, and her husband became bedridden after a car accident. She has to support the entire family all by herself. I don't dare to take risks lightly. In the plum garden, fallen leaves drifted through the air as Lin Yu and I sat chatting on a stone bench. Laughter occasionally bubbling up between us. Troy Gu stood on the second-floor balcony, holding a cup of coffee in one hand, watching us with satisfaction. I sighed. Remember those late-night chats in the dorm when we talked about traveling the world? In the end, life got the better of us, Lin Yu said with a smile. Exactly. If you manage to go to New Zealand this time, you might just fulfill your dream. As she spoke, she waved at Troy Gu. I suddenly fell silent. Lin Yu, how did you know? I'm going to New Zealand. Lin Yu's expression froze. I slowly began to speak. I didn't tell anyone about my trip to New Zealand. The only way to track my itinerary was through the booking system, and as my personal assistant. You had access to all that data, so you knew about it from the very beginning. By the end, my voice was trembling. Lin Yu, were you also an accomplice in kidnapping me? Lila, I believe Professor Gu wouldn't harm you. So, about my family's situation, I gritted my teeth. What about Nshui's matter? Did you also know about it all along? Lin Yu's face turned ashen. I sneered coldly. How foolish of me. For such an important position, someone like Troy Gu would naturally only trust his own people. Lin Yu, I'm so disappointed in you. Lin Yu lowered her head in anguish. Lila, I'm sorry. My husband's medical bills are too high. I desperately needed this job. I fell silent for a moment, gazing at the valley strewn with fallen leaves. You know, all I need to do is say a word to Troy Gu, and you'll be fired immediately. Not only will you lose your job, but I'll also sue you for leaking employer secrets. No one in this industry will dare hire you again. Lin Yu trembled all over. My tone was icy. Tomorrow at noon, you'll come pick me up by car. Lin Yu, this is your last chance. Troy Gu walked over, his gaze probing as he asked, what were you talking about? The atmosphere seemed so heavy. I sighed softly, supporting the pale-faced Lin Yu. Taking care of a family with a paralyzed patient is truly not easy. The next day at noon, the sky was overcast as I stood on the balcony, gazing at the end of the mountain road. Finally, a white car slowly approached. I quickly turned around, changed my clothes, and went downstairs. On the first floor, the housekeeper asked me where I was going with a puzzled look. I walked out without looking back. Only when Lin Yu was driving me along the mountain road did I finally breathe a little easier. Troy Gu seemed suspicious. He specifically asked about our conversation yesterday morning. He's always been paranoid. I'm afraid he might come after me if he finds out I've left. I glanced at the gloomy sky and said solemnly, we need to get down the mountain before it rains. But we hadn't driven far when an autumn rain wet the road. At a turn, the car skidded, crashed into the cliff, and stalled. Lin Yu and I were anxiously checking the malfunction when Troy Gu's car sped toward us. He slammed on the brakes, pushed the door open, and strode over with a grim expression. I stepped back, one step at a time, until I stood on the edge of the roadside cliff. A flash of panic crossed Troy Gu's face as he stopped 3 meters away from me. Lila, come back. It's too dangerous. I stared at him quietly, unmoving. His eyes were bloodshot, teeth clenched. Lila, come here. I gazed down at the abyss beneath my feet, speaking each word deliberately. Troy Gu, how much of your feelings for me are truly genuine? With those words, I resolutely turned and leaped. Almost simultaneously, a figure lunged toward me, clutching me tightly. We tumbled down the hillside, and Troy Gu shielded me with his body. His right leg slammed heavily against the rocks at the cliff's edge, leaving him immobile. Silently, I stood up from over him and looked down at his figure. Lila, he reached out his hand to me, his voice trembling. Come home with me. On stage, Lin Yu shouted in panic. I looked up to see a van screeching to a halt at the backstage entrance, and Nshui jumped out of the car, staring at the scene before him in disbelief. I closed my eyes briefly, then turned and walked away. Lila, behind us came Troy Gu's heart-wrenching scream. When Lin Yu and I hurriedly boarded Troy Gu's van, and Nshui was anxiously dialing emergency services, I started the car and sped away from the theater. In the silent train compartment, Lin Yu remained quiet for a long time before finally speaking up. Lila, did you know he would definitely come to save you? I pressed my lips tightly together. Tears kept falling uncontrollably. I went back to my father's house. He started a new family with my stepmother when I was 8 years old, and they had a younger brother. Over the years, I didn't want to disturb their lives, so we rarely kept in touch, but now, I desperately needed the comfort of family. My father's family was shocked to see me and quickly busied themselves pouring me water and cutting fruit. I fell into a deep sleep amidst the thick scent of oil paint in the studio. I slept for a very, very long time. When I woke up, it was already late at night. There were 3 people in the studio, all engrossed in painting. My father and stepmother are renowned painters. My younger brother also inherited artistic talent. Seeing that I was awake, my stepmother immediately went to the kitchen and brought a bowl of steaming hot noodles. She carefully called my name and said she could cook more if it wasn't enough. Afterwards, she took my younger brother into the art studio, leaving the space for me and my father. My father looked at me deeply. "Lila, you've been wronged, haven't you?" I suddenly burst into tears. During this period, from initially discovering Nsue, finding out Troy Gu had an illegitimate child, to later being in a car accident and falling into a coma, and then being imprisoned in the villa for a month, life-altering events came one after another. I didn't even have time to grieve before being swept up in a storm, painfully transformed into someone else. I feel wronged, yet my heart aches unbearably. Troy Gu risked his life to save me, yet I abandoned him at the foot of the cliff. Dad listened quietly as I finished telling him everything, never interrupting. After a long silence, he waited for my emotions to settle before speaking gently. "Troy Gu has too much power and can't let you go. He'll keep bothering you, so get a divorce and take back the company." I stared blankly at Dad. He smiled at me. "Don't worry, divorce might be troublesome, but it's not that difficult." "What about taking back the company?" I sobbed and asked. Dad slightly narrowed his eyes. "The first lesson I taught your mother when she entered this industry was never to put all your chips on one project. She trusted Troy Gu, yet had to guard against him. Many years ago, she secretly nurtured a competitor, which has now grown to quite a considerable scale. Lila, don't be afraid, you still have Dad." As I was leaving, I couldn't help but ask, "Dad, why did you and Mom separate?" He said gently, "Your mother and I are completely different individuals. Being together only drains us both. Lila, marriage is meant to make life better, and so is divorce. You've been very brave during this time, and I'm proud of you." Dad, I met Troy Gu again a month later, at the Civil Affairs Bureau signing ceremony. A lot has happened during this time. Transfer of shares, Lin Yu switching to a rival company, Troy Gu's illegitimate child exposed, and Sui facing online bullying. Troy Gu losing control of the company, a bitter divorce battle. Everything unfolded under Dad's meticulous planning. As for me, I spent peaceful days studying painting under a master artist. When Dad told me everything was settled, I was amazed by the capabilities of this artist father. Dad seemed lost in thought, his expression somewhat complicated. "No, I only did half of this process." Troy Gu gave up half. Some things, he even actively cooperated with. On the day we went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get divorced, Troy Gu came on crutches. During this period, I've been recuperating and my complexion has become rosy. In contrast, he had become much more haggard and thin. I stared at his lame leg, feeling somewhat dazed. Throughout the signing process, he cooperated very well, doing whatever was asked of him, though his gaze never left me. When we parted, I asked him, "Why did you agree again?" He said calmly, "I want to see you." "What do you mean?" I didn't understand. He smiled faintly. "I can't help it. Losing the company, getting divorced, none of it matters. I just want to see you again. Lila, we've never been apart this long. If I don't see you soon, I'll go crazy." As if remembering something, he grew somewhat excited again. "A month later, we can meet again. Lila, by then my leg should have healed, and you won't see me in such a sorry state anymore." As I walked out of the Civil Affairs office, I felt a pair of burning eyes fixed on my back, watching me leave. Just as I turned into the parking lot to get into my car, Nsue suddenly appeared. For a moment, I was startled by the change in her appearance. Once, though not outstanding, she had a pitiable appearance that evoked sympathy. Now, with bulging eyes and prominent cheekbones, she looked somewhat harsh. She stared at me. "Lila Fong, you're truly my nemesis." I tilted my head and looked at her coldly. "Nsue, isn't this all your own doing? A mistress should face the consequences of being a mistress." "You're talking nonsense. I had already loved him deeply before you appeared. The real third party is you." And Sue's face twisted beyond recognition as she screamed hysterically. At 15, during his parents' funeral, I fell for him at first sight. I gave everything to make him love me too, but you stood like a wall, forever between us. Because of you, I could only love him in the shadows. From the day she was born, my daughter has never felt her father's embrace, all because he feared the scent of milk on him would give him away to you. You ruined his future, reducing the acting career he worked so hard to build to nothing. The mansion was repossessed by the bank. leaving us without a place to live. Now the internet is flooded with hateful words targeting me and my child, all because of you. I shook my head helplessly. If that's the case, why couldn't you just stay quietly as the secret lover? Why did you have to scheme with that perfume trick? And Sway bit her lips so hard it nearly bled, her eyes wide as saucers. I sneered. Someone as fastidious as Troy would never let someone else's perfume linger on him. That scent. You sprayed it on him when he had a cold and couldn't smell, didn't you? When I saw how carefully Troy kept the tie I gave him, I understood. Even if he betrayed me, he'd never use a tie I hand-knitted as a table leg cushion. You must have noticed me following you that day, right? You seized the moment, sprayed perfume on him, stuffed the tie under the table leg, even deliberately left those suggestive undergarments on the bed. When you came back and saw my car still parked outside, you became even more brazen. Putting on your affectionate show right in front of me, utterly shameless. I stared at her coldly. All of this is the disaster you brought upon yourself with your insatiable greed. If you hadn't deliberately let the scent of perfume arouse my suspicions, your secret life could have continued. A man whose heart is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. And Sway, it's too late for regrets now. A figure suddenly rushed over and tightly gripped in Sway's neck. Troy's eyes were bloodshot as he roared hoarsely. So it was you pulling the strings behind the scenes. It's all your fault, you scheming, venomous woman. Killing my parents wasn't enough for you. Now you want to ruin me and Lila Fong too. You're nothing but a jinx, a curse. How dare you show your face before Lila Fong? I'll kill you today. And Sway was being choked until her eyes rolled back, her body gradually going limp. Two passing security guards rushed over and struggled with great effort to pull Sway free from his grasp. Troy continued to roar like a madman. I'll kill you, and Sway coughed violently, slowly straightening up, with reddened eyes. She screamed hoarsely, Troy we are the real family. This woman ruined your reputation, made me and our daughter homeless. She's the one you should kill. She turned her head and glared at me viciously. You bitch, go die, once you're dead. Everything will belong to Troy Everything will be my daughter's. A flash of cruelty passed through her eyes as she suddenly lunged at me. Lila, Troy dashed forward, shielding me with his body. A sharp knife plunged straight into his heart, blood gushing out like a fountain. He blinked in confusion, then turned back to say to me, Lila, this is our last goodbye. Before the words had fully left his mouth, he collapsed heavily to the ground. And Sway stared blankly at her blood-stained hands and let out a piercing scream. The surrounding crowd panicked in disarray. I stood frozen in place, as if turned to stone. Troy passed away due to excessive blood loss, and Sway was sentenced to life imprisonment for intentional homicide. Half a year later, Noah Chow and I stood at the entrance of the orphanage, silently watching the heartwarming adoption ceremony inside. Tian was adopted by a kind and amiable couple. She looked up with her little face and asked timidly, Daddy, can I hug you? The man laughed heartily and lifted her up in his arms. Of course, Daddy will hold you every day from now on. Tian's little face turned rosy as she smiled happily. A 6-year-old child adapts quickly and soon embraced her new family. It was a tragedy, yet also a new beginning. Noah Chow and I sighed in unison. On the way back, Noah Chow suddenly frowned and said, Lila Fong. Aren't you worried she might come looking for revenge when she grows up? I smiled. You've been watching too many soap operas. Noah Chow wouldn't let it go. What if, just what if? I kept my eyes forward, a slight smile playing at the corners of my mouth. Then bring it on. If she grows up unable to distinguish right from wrong, I will deal with her without mercy. I never shy away from the trials of fate, so I am always ready to face any challenge. If she grows into an upright and diligent young person, I will sincerely rejoice for her, just as I would for anyone else. Good and evil come from the heart. It is all her own choice. Noah Chow turned her head to look at me. Lila Fong, I'm so relieved that after all this, you're still the same you. I smiled and, under the clear sky, softly murmured, you hate those people so much, but in the end, you become what you despise. There is no ideal in this world, worth paying such a heavy price for.